What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Radiovania's DCEU in Review. My name is Zach Ratello, at Zach Ratello on Twitter, and sitting once again in the driver's seat, John Swanson Parker.
What's up, Zach?
You know,
Roadshow episode 2.
You know, I got hot takes, and I apologize to any of our fans listening that live in the greater Idaho area. But I got some issues with this. I got some beef with this state.
You got some real hot takes. Coming in super hot.
No, John and I are, if you didn't catch the last episode where we talked about the Aquaman.
Great episode.
Oh, yeah, top
discussion.
tier. We're on a road trip. We're moving John out to California, and right now we're recording in his car. So the microphone setup is kind of wonky. It's not the best audio quality, but like we said last time, the quality just as good as it always is. You know what I'm saying?
The conversation quality, saucy as usual.
Saucy. The conversation, saucy. The food,
exquisite.
Yep. And so today we're talking about Shazam.
Hip hip dog.
Basically, what we've been doing is we've been going through all the DC films and like kind of reviewing them with like fresh eyes.
More of a critical lens, thinking of the big picture as a whole.
Yeah.
It's been an interesting journey to get to the point that we're at now where we're watching fun movies.
Yeah, right.
The first couple episodes of this pod, like the Man of Steel discussion was great. You know, it has its ups and downs. But it was really dismal there for that one stretch.
Yeah.
And it's nice to talk about Aquaman the other day, talking about this one, and then I still haven't seen Birds of Prey, so when we do that pod, that'll be after I've watched it.
Yeah, I'm very excited for that one too. So thank you guys for listening. If you have been listening so far, we appreciate your love and support. Please do all the things that we usually do to tell you to do. You know, go to Radiovania.com. That's got everything where you want to watch and listen and do that. We got podcast feeds. You can basically just search any podcast feed. I don't think there's one that we're not on. For Radiovania, and you can find our shows there. Follow the show at Radiovania or RadiovaniaShow@gmail.com for all of your questions, comments, concerns, and hot takes about the state of Idaho. Is it true that Idaho is about... Sorry. I think potatoes. Is that what you think of?
That is what a lot of people think of. That is not what I think of.
What do you think of when you think of Idaho? You think of Boise, Idaho?
Boise State in that blue turf field for Boise State Broncos.
Okay.
That's what I think of when I think of Idaho. But yeah, farm country. Potatoes is one of its main crops, if you will. But
right.
Like every other American farm state, there's some corn, there's some lima beans, stuff like that. Things that we can grow. Idaho, though, criminally large compared to what people normally think. Like,
yeah,
it's a pretty big state.
It feels very, very big. It feels massive.
But we'll only be in here for the next couple of hours or so, and then drop down into Nevada.
We're going to Vegas, baby.
Not quite.
Not quite.
The young Vegas.
Young Vegas. But before we get... So today we're talking about Shazam, but before we get into that, John, I've got breaking news.
Okay.
I read this morning when I was on the Twitters.
You've been sitting on this?
Yeah, I've been sitting on this so that we could talk about it fresh.
Okay.
Wonder Woman 1984 release date pushed again. This is from Variety. It says, Warner Brothers has postponed the release of Wonder Woman 1984, the latest development in Hollywood's rocky plans to return to the movies. The superhero sequel starring Gal Gadot, which was expected to debut on October 2nd, will now touch down in theaters on Christmas Day, December 25th, 2020. Quote, Patty is an exceptional filmmaker, and with Wonder Woman 1984, she has delivered an incredibly dynamic film that moviegoers of all ages around the world will absolutely love, end quote, said Toby Emmerich, Warner Bros. Motion Picture Group chairman. Patty Jenkins added, quote, first and foremost, let me say how much Gal and I love our devoted Wonder Woman fans, and for your excitement. It couldn't make us happier or more eager for you to see the movie, because I know how important it is to bring this movie to you on a big screen when all of us can share the experience together. I'm hopeful you won't mind waiting just a little bit longer. With the new date on Christmas Day, we can't wait to spend the holidays with you, end quote. Thoughts, John?
I think it's the smart move. However, I do think the smarter move would be to also be like, happy holidays, you can gift this to one of your loved ones for Christmas. VOD release is also December 24th at midnight, or something like that. Like, I don't know. I think you could do some really cool marketing here where you can release it straight to home. Because I still think by Christmas, winter is going to make COVID a little bit worse for some states in parts of the world. I think for a Christmas release, that's still a little too ambitious.
I think so.
And I think if you really want to make your money back on Wonder Woman, you release it at home.
Yep.
I'll buy it for people for a Christmas present. Be like, here's Wonder Woman 84.
Watch it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I think that I agree with you almost 100%. I think this is still too soon. I think that, if anything, Christmas, using the word Christmas Day for this almost feels like a placeholder as well.
Yep.
Because this is, I'm calling it here. If I was a betting man, I'd say there's a 90% chance that this gets pushed again into the spring.
If they refuse to release it at home, yeah.
Right. It's like, you can put it out. Like, what was funny is that John and I on our road trip, we were driving through Colorado and we stayed at Estes Park and we did some hiking and stuff. And there's like little theaters chains that we saw as we were driving around, and they're showing Tenet. And it's kind of easy to forget, like, oh yeah, that's right. Some movie theaters are open and are showing Tenet, which was supposed to be one of the biggest blockbusters of this entire year.
Yep.
Do you visualize American families waking up on Christmas morning in a COVID world, opening their presents, hanging out with everybody, all their family, and then like, oh, well, let's go to the movies on Christmas Day?
It depends on if there's a vaccine by that point.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, a vaccine changes everything.
If there's a vaccine, then yeah, I can see that being a triumphant return to the movies. Because there are a lot of people that's their Christmas tradition, is to go see a movie on Christmas Day. That's why Star Wars did so well.
Yep.
At least in the Disney era. But yeah, as of the way things are right now, no, I do not.
Yeah. So, and
I certainly will not.
No way. No. So yeah, not a whole lot new to touch on there, because we basically say the same thing every single week with these DC movies, with their plans with the Batman, with their plans with Wonder Woman, and all this jazz. It's just give us the option, release it on VOD, and then release it in the theater later.
Yep.
Like, once it's completely safe and normal to go back to the theaters and be in a crowded room with a lot of people, I'll go see it again. Yeah, see it on the big screen, you enjoy it.
And then you get my money twice over.
Yeah, it's like the logic of these filmmakers is that the first time you see it is the most important time. Yeah. Which I don't necessarily think is the case. I think it's like, if you watch The Godfather at home, because it's not playing in theaters right now, you're going to get the same, not necessarily the same experience, but not a bad experience, just a different one. And that's not wrong. And that really pisses me off that they're just holding back this art that should be left to enjoy, but instead they're just like dangling it because they're hoping they can make more money.
I was really proud of Warner Brothers when they just released Scoob out into the world. I bought it. I enjoyed it. I thought it was a cute movie. And it's just like, I think they probably did pretty well, because it was like one of the only things to come out in the summer. Because the summer blockbuster season was just taken away from us because of COVID. But why stop with the summer? Like, just be like DC. We talked about this with the fandom. DC has the opportunity to be the trendsetter here.
Yeah.
Because if they announce that Wonder Woman 84 is going to VOD, I guarantee you a week and a half later, Marvel's like, yeah, Black Widow will be out on Disney Plus.
It only takes one to tip the dominoes.
Yep.
And
be the first one.
Yeah, so Mulan was supposed to be the first one. That was like the one where it's like, this is a $200 million blockbuster. This movie's did you know Mulan was projected to be Disney's highest grossing movie this year before COVID?
Yeah, because it was coming out, in March originally, when like nothing comes out?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's a known IP. The Disney remakes are cash cows anyway.
Yep.
And it's like, Black Widow is a well-known Avenger, but it's still like Mulan is more targeted directly at young adults or kids and families. With Black Widow is like an action movie, PG-13 action movie. So it's like,
who is that girl I see staring straight?
But now we found out Mulan, not so hot. Maybe that could also hinder this whole thing is screwed. You know what I mean?
Yeah, the world's fucked.
World's fucked. Can't do anything about it. World's fucked.
Stay inside. Stay inside when you can. Wash your hands. Wear a mask.
Yep.
Please vote in November.
Yeah, Radiovania supports
democracy. So please take part in it.
All the safe procedures, things, and not stupidity.
Don't be a jackass and think just because just because your county doesn't require you to wear a mask, that you can just walk in and out of gas stations without one. Try and beat this thing. There are people that really need it.
Yep.
Shazam! Let's talk about Shazam.
Released on April 5th, 2019, clocking in at 1 hour, 132 minutes, so it's like hour 50? Hour 45, hour 50? Directed by David S. Sandberg.
Yep.
He hasn't done much. The only real feature directing credits he has before Shazam are Lights Out in 2016. Did you see that?
I did not.
And then Annabelle Creation.
I saw that.
What'd you think of that?
The Conjuring universe is a cool concept, but the only ones that I have seen that I enjoyed is The Conjuring and Conjuring 2. Wasn't a big fan of the Annabelle offshoots, and I haven't heard good things about none.
What about The Curse of La Llorona?
What was that?
That was part of the Conjuring universe.
Yeah, I haven't seen that. I want to see. I want to see what they do with Conjuring 3 though, because I think it could be something pretty spooky.
Pretty spooky. So David F. Sandberg, small-time indie horror director, does a bunch of short films on YouTube, and that's how he got picked up to do Lights Out, which was one of his short films that he expanded into a full-length feature. So another case of the find a small independent director that you can get for not a whole lot of money, and they've proven that they can make a film competently and do it well, get them to direct this big budget action.
That's what I like about some of these comic book movies is they did that. The first guy I think that they got to do that to be really successful with it was James Mangold.
For the Wolverine?
For the Wolverine and then for Logan. Because he knows how to work around budgetary things. Like, what they made Logan for what, like $50 million?
It's dirt cheap, yeah. And
movie,
tons of that movie is practical, too.
Oh, my God, it's so good. But, like, that kind of was the first domino to fall, and then I liked how... I still really wish we could have seen... what's that director that you really liked that was supposed to direct Ant-Man?
Oh, Edgar Wright.
I really wanted to see his version of Ant-Man, but I still liked the Peyton Reed version.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and they just started doing these smaller indie film directors to make some of these movies, which
Scott Derrickson was not known for much, and he was the guy that did Doctor Strange.
Right.
And now they're upgrading to Sam Raimi.
Yeah.
So
a little guy named Jon Favreau.
Just a little man named Favs. The writers for this movie. There's one guy credited with the screenplay. His name is Henry Gayden.
Okay.
Doesn't even have a photo on IMDb.
Wow.
Let me tell you about this guy's resume.
Okay.
2019, writer on Shazam. Before that, Earth to Echo. He was a writer for... It's like a children's movie, I think.
Okay.
And then before that, in 2007, he's listed as miscellaneous crew for Spider-Man 3.
Miscellaneous crew?
Miscellaneous crew. I don't know what that means.
Okay.
But we got ourselves a Spider-Man connection.
Perfect.
What else? Details about the movie here. Production budget, Shazam, $85 million, which is one of the lowest DCEU production budgets.
Yeah. Here's the thing about movies, kids, is that they don't all have to be these big, high stakes, there's a sky beam, end of the world type of, stakes. Like, I like how Shazam has, 5 set pieces. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Like the Rock of Eternity, the house, the carnival, and that's kind of it in terms of big set pieces. And then various spots in Philly, which you don't have to build. You just go there.
Yeah.
Lightning with me.
And this movie did pretty well in that their box office. Not nearly. Last episode we talked about the Aquaman. What was it?
1 billion.
It was 1.2 billion worldwide.
Yeah.
Shazam domestic box office 140 million, international 223, and for a worldwide box office of $363 million, made an extra $30 million on domestic video sales.
That's pretty good.
So not bad.
I mean, they were profitable.
Made its money back, yeah, but it didn't go crazy over it. It's enough to...
It's a small character. You got to think it's just Shazam is not a household name, you know?
Yeah. It's the 52nd all-time worldwide box office for a superhero movie. So it's pretty low down there in terms of a superhero movie.
Yeah. It's pretty high up there in terms of quality of superhero movie. I would say.
Yeah. Then that's basically all like the details on this movie there. Well, I've got some trivia that I'll pepper in as we stroll along.
Okay.
But yeah, surface level, Shazam. John, what'd you think on your rewatch?
So I've seen Shazam a total of 2 times, including watching it for this podcast. My first time was I saw it for my birthday last year, actually. Grayson and I went and saw it in the theaters. We had a really fun theater experience, so a lot of the jokes were landing. What I like about Shazam is they didn't show all the funniest stuff in the trailers. They did hold things back, which I think is always good when you do that.
Right.
It surprised me a little bit, because as comic book geeks, we dissect each trailer. So we had seen some of the jokes already, but thankfully they saved some. I really like Shazam, though. I think it's a fun movie. I think it works well for multiple audiences, which I think is cool. And it's such a fun concept where it's like Tom Hanks is big. If instead of turning into Tom Hanks, he turns into Superman. You know what I mean? And that's always been a really cool aspect for the Shazam character, which I'm sure we'll dive into some fun factoids about it.
Yeah.
But was originally named Captain Marvel in the 30s and was a big competitor and actually outsold Superman in the comics for a little bit. And then DC was finally able to acquire the rights to Shazam and the Captain Marvel character and brought him from Wiz Comics to DC Publications. And then Marvel obviously wanted the name Captain Marvel because it's their company name. And one thing led to another, and they had to start calling the character Shazam, but it's still the Captain Marvel family.
In Shazam, this is one of the trivia facts that I'm reciting kind of from memory, but they never refer to Billy Batson's character as Shazam. In fact, they skirt around it in the movie. They just say
call him everything else.
Yeah, they're literally everything else.
Captain Sparklefingers.
He says that it's just, he's like, it's not my name, it's just the name that I used to transform or whatever, and stuff like that. So, what is that? So, John, DC Comics expert, Zach doesn't know much about DC Comics there. What is Shazam doing now? Is it a pretty popular series now, or is it not running currently?
They started a publication run when the movie came out last year that Jeff Johns is writing. So how comics work sometimes, Zach, is if you have a big marquee writer or artist, sometimes they sit down and to acquire this person to get them to be solely aligned with one of the big two.
Right.
So like if DC really wants Jeff Johns and they don't want him to write for Marvel ever again, they give him a contract that allows him to pick certain things, and that's what he can have access to. Like they give you a list and they're like, you can pick these things, and whenever you want to do stuff is when we'll publish it. But it's not like Batman or Superman that has to come out every month, because it's been coming out every month since the 30s.
Gotcha.
So like Shazam had a bit of a hiatus. In the past couple of years leading up to this movie, there was the Jeff Johns New 52 story arc, which is pretty much carbon copy what this movie is, with the exception of, in the comic, Black Adam is also a villain with Dr. Sivana, whereas in this one we just get Doc Sivana. But yeah, that's where he introduced like Pedro and Eugene and Darla. Those are all Jeff Johns creations. And so that was kind of like the last Shazam-specific comic for a long time. Otherwise, he just kind of pops up in Elseworld stories or Justice League stories or other things like that. So I think he's in Doomsday Clock for a little bit. I know Black Adam is for sure. But yeah, so he's got a comic right now, but he's not like Batman where it's like there needs to be a comic every month. So right now, Jeff Johns has Shazam rights, essentially. Like, whenever they want to do Shazam, he's going to be overseeing it.
Okay.
The same with, like, I think he had the Legion of Superheroes for a little bit. He has the Justice Society, stuff like that. So he picked some obscure ones and he made them really fun.
Yeah. Because I had never heard of this character before the movies came around and we started, I had no idea that there was even a character Shazam. I had no idea about the Captain Marvel thing until right around the time the movie was coming out.
Yep.
And now I had no idea about Black Adam, and now there's a Black Adam movie. And now not only is there a Black Adam movie, there's also a sequel to Shazam already in the works that they talked about at Fandom. So
yep.
The property is kind of taken off a little bit again now. I mean, I know it was really popular back in the early days of comics, but
real early days.
Yeah, early days.
Early days. That was when he was super popular. I would say Shazam peaked probably in the 30s and the 40s.
Okay.
And then maybe this movie has brought him back into the public eye.
All right. Yeah. Well, I liked it. I think this is the best Sam Raimi movie since Spider-Man 3. No, in all seriousness, though, this is what I said. This is what I thought when I first came out of the movie, and I know that a lot of people, feel the same way. But this movie does feel kind of like Spider-Man.
Yep.
Like Sam Raimi's Spider-Man, where there's just a wholesome quality to it that you don't really see very often. And I think that this was an interesting choice for this director, especially coming from a horror background, because there's some stuff in this movie that's pretty terrifying. Yeah. Like visually striking, but it's also kind of more like Gremlins than it is like...
Yeah, it is like Gremlins.
Like when they're opening all the doors and in the room or wherever that's called. And,
yeah, that reminds me of Monsters, Inc.
Sure, Monsters, Inc. But yeah, I get like a lot of Sam Raimi vibes here, like lots of really, funny dialogue. Like characters are all very like comic booky, so they act very dramatically. I like everyone has a specific archetype, like...
Yep. Color choices.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
yeah.
Darla always wears purple, stuff like that.
Yeah, and it's really, I don't know. I really enjoyed it on my second viewing. My first viewing, I thought, yeah, good movie. I enjoyed it. It was not as bad as Justice League. So it was pretty good in my book. But then on the second rewatch, I was watching it, taking notes, and kind of just, spending a little bit more time with it. I was at home and, in the comfort of my house. And I really, really thoroughly enjoyed it the second time. Top of the list for me.
Yeah.
Top one of the definitely in the top 3, but we'll save our discussion for that in a little bit.
Sure.
Anything else surface level, or do you want to just jump right into discuss the story and everything?
I guess a quick question for my own edification would be does the movie make you interested in reading more or finding out more about the character, or are you just interested in the film aspect?
So what I'm interested in is the idea of the Marvel family.
Yeah.
I think that concept is super cool. So that makes me want to read. But again, I don't know the extent of the Shazam comics and what.
It's a really easy buy-in if that's what you're interested in, because you can just pick. It's one trade.
Yeah.
That's it. You just pick up the Jeff Johns trade. It's the new 52 Shazam run, and that's where you get the pretty much kind of like this movie. And then I think they have 1.5 trades so far built up of the newer Jeff Johns book that started last year when this movie came out, and all of the family is a huge part of that too. So
yeah.
If that's what you're interested in, get the Jeff Johns stuff. One of my favorite Shazam appearances is there's an episode of Justice League Unlimited where Captain Marvel's Shazam works for Lex Luthor, and he gets hired as a bodyguard, and him and Superman fight in a playground. It's awesome.
That sounds pretty rad.
It's so good.
There's something here about... There's a trivia fact about each one of the people in the kids in the Marvel family. Apparently they're they each protect their own specific realm, and there's one point in the movie, I guess, where they kind of show that, right?
I think they kind of hint.
They hint toward it.
Yeah.
Okay. But yeah,
the 7 realms of the Magic Lands. Yeah,
sounds pretty tight.
Yeah.
But yeah, I like that. I like that concept. I like the idea of.
I like the Wildlands the best. It's like Zootopia, pretty much. It's like tigers in suits and shit.
Yeah. Zootopia in review coming soon.
Oh heck yeah, man.
Disney Pixar in review. Can you imagine every Pixar movie?
That'd be pretty interesting.
That might be, yeah.
I was thinking early 2000s Marvel next, where we do X-Men and Spider-Man.
Blade
and Daredevil. Ben Affleck Daredevil.
I swore that I would never watch that movie ever again.
The Elektra movie.
I never saw Elektra.
Oh, it's garbage.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, enough about that.
Check, please.
Shh, let's go, baby.
All right, Shazam plot. You ready?
Plot.
All
Plot it up.
As always, whenever you need to stop for questions or things.
Yep. I'll interject.
The movie opens in a way that I was not expecting in the theaters, but we get introduced to who will become our villain first. It opens with this car kind of traveling through the forest on a windy road. And it's this little kid in glasses who they're calling Thaddeus or Thad.
Yep.
And he's riding with his dad and his brother, who are just the two biggest douchebags I've ever seen. He's playing with the Magic 8 Ball, and they're just kind of picking on him, and they take the magic ball from him, and his brother's just kind of being a dick, and he's like, is Thad ever going to be a man? And his dad's always talking about how he's not a man, he doesn't stand up for himself. And they give him the ball back, and the little, what is that, like a little pyramid? I can't remember what shape is actually in a Magic 8 Ball.
It's like it's not quite like a pyramid,
like a D20
but
or
it's like it's something like that. Not a 20-sided die, but it's definitely like an 8 or a 12-sided die.
So it's like an 8-sided die, and normally it's got those traditional responses that a Magic 8 Ball has, but when he gets it back from his brother, he sees that there's these strange hieroglyphics that are forming on it. And he looks up to complain about the ball, and he finds himself kind of transported into this other worldly realm. It's this cave, and he starts walking around, getting out of the car, and his dad and his brother have disappeared from the vehicle. So he's walking around, and he sees, some jars with the caterpillar in it, as well as like some statues of like gargoyle-ish figures, as well as a pillar with a glowing magical ball. And we are introduced to the person who keeps this realm, who is the wizard known as Shazam, played by, pronounce his name?
Jaimond Hunsu, I believe is the proper pronunciation.
Yeah.
I apologize, Mr. Hunsu.
Yes. And he's got, he's got this like Gandalf the Grey type of, beard and hair thing going on. He's got a magic staff, but he's got the huge lightning bolt on his chest.
Right.
He claims that he has been looking for a successor, and that there was once a council of 7 wizards, and you see 7 different chairs, and they would combat the evils of the 7 deadly sins. 7 is a very important number in Shazam, like in Shazam lore. There's 7 kingdoms, 7 deadly sins, 7 seats on the council of wizards, all that kind of stuff.
And do you know why?
Because his name is 7 letters? Is that right?
That's interesting. I didn't think about that.
6 letters.
Shazam. Not if you the exclamation point. Is 7. Turns out, 7. Very important. 7 deadly sins. It's a Catholic thing. It's Catholic Christianity. There's a lot of biblical stuff tied into this Shazam here.
This Shazam.
According to Catholic Christianity, the opposite of the 7 deadly sins are the 7 heavenly virtues, which Billy Batson displays throughout the film.
Yeah.
Diligence. He's loyal to his mother and dedicated to finding her. Kindness. He learns to be kinder to his foster family. Humility. He initially refuses the wizard's offer, claiming he is not worthy to be his champion. Temperance. He learns to be more responsible with his power over the course of the film. Patience. He forgives his mother for his abandonment of him. Charity. He shares his power with his foster siblings. Chastity. He can resist the sins tempting, as shown with the prank at the end of the final battle. The 8th heavenly virtue is hope, which counters the 8th deadly sin of despair. Billy represents the wizard's last chance for acquiring a champion.
Yeah.
So 7 deadly sins, 7 heavenly virtues, a lot of stuff in the Shazam universe tied to biblical references, which is pretty interesting.
Yeah.
Do they dive into biblical stuff at all in the New 52 run?
Okay. Not really. The 7 deadly sins and the meaning of the name Shazam, which we'll dive into in a little bit, is mostly what they go into, though. So Thaddeus Savannah, as this little boy, is speaking to the wizard, and the wizard is saying that he's trying to find a successor because his powers are growing weak. But in order to prove that he's true of heart, he has to pass his little test, essentially, which is if he can refuse the draw of that magical ball, which I don't even know if they ever really named what it is. Do you remember?
It's like the orb of power or something.
It's some
generic.
Yeah,
it's a MacGuffin. It's a MacGuffin.
So as it kind of starts to the orb via the statues, which are the 7 deadly sins, they start to kind of speak to him. My note was that is like the statues in Mulan, like the ancestor statues.
Right, yeah.
You know what I'm talking about?
Oh yeah.
So they're kind of speaking to him about how the wizard's weak and he should take the power, and he could be greater than the wizard anyway. And he's about to reach for the ball, and he gets kind of stopped at the last second by the wizard, and the wizard very harshly tells this young boy that he'll never be worthy and he'll never be a good man. And he just...
Yeah, Wizard straight lays this fucker out.
Yeah, that's a bad move by the Wizard right there, because you just made yourself an enemy. And so he, kicks out Savannah.
Yep.
And part of me, if I'm wrong, but after he kicks him out is when he releases all these glowing orbs from his staff. He's like, this is my one last chance. As long as it takes for you to find someone true of heart, please bring someone back to me. And all these things go away. And Thad kind of shows back up in the car and is freaking out. And he's talking about being at a magical place. The Rock of Eternity is what is known to be called, which is the entrance to all the magical realms. And he's talking nonsense. And his dad and his brother already don't like him. And now he sounds like a crazy person.
Dude, this family sucks.
It's horrible.
The dad is like such an asshole.
Yeah, he's Lionel Luthor from Smallville, too. Yeah. John Glover.
John Glover, that's right,
yeah. Great actor, by the way, too. But yeah, so he's just kind of... And, Thaddeus is trying to get out of the car. He's like pulling on the handle, and the dad's getting very annoyed with him, and he turns around, and they kind of spin off the road, and you think everything's going to be fine, and he's just... he calls him a little shit, I think.
Yeah, he said
he's... Like sniveling little shit or something. He's like really...
White guilt.
Yeah, he's like really laying it on thick to this poor kid here. And then they get T-boned by a car, which I thought was an interesting editing choice, that they start playing the Christmas music louder, as in slow motion. The cars. It's like flipping around.
Again, Sam Raimi. This feels like such like... it's same thing, but not necessarily like again, we didn't even touch on this during our like surface level things. This is a great Christmas movie.
It is Christmas movie that came out in April, but
right,
fantastic Christmas movie like Die Hard. But yeah, so they get into this huge accident, and the dad is thrown from the car. The brother and the dad don't die, but I think we'll come to find out. They never actually explicitly say it, but the dad is paralyzed. He's in a wheelchair that we see later.
They never explicitly say it.
Yep.
They just show him
and
in a wheelchair.
The brother's just like, this is all your fault. And, he's like, no. And that's the last we see of that. And is this where we get the title card?
This is where we get the title cards.
Yeah. So we had a cold open, essentially, with the villain.
Which I really, really dig. I think this is awesome. I love the way this movie opens when I saw it in theaters, not expecting it at all.
Nope.
Thought this was awesome, immediately intriguing to me. Yeah, and one of these things that the DC movies continue to fail with is making interesting villains. And Shazam is one of the only DCEU films that I can think of besides, like, Zod, where I love the bad guy. Mm-hmm. Savannah's awesome. I love that actor. Mark Strong.
He's fantastic.
He's so good. He's menacing.
When they had him be Sinestro in the Green Lantern movie,
totally
but I'm glad he got another shot at a comic book movie.
Yeah.
He should be Dr. Doom.
That'd be cool. I could fuck with that. Yeah, he's great. He's awesome in this whole movie. I mean, like, I wish that we spend more time with him. We kind of get the cold open, and then we get like
he doesn't die.
He doesn't die.
We can come back
exactly.
Yeah.
And we get the office scene too, like where he's like with like where he goes back to the wizard.
Yeah.
That we get a lot of cool stuff there, but then we kind of lose track of him for a little bit as bad guy stuff is happening. But
generic exposition.
Exactly.
Moments. Yeah. Well, what we should also talk about is that Captain Marvel's Shazam doesn't have a very large rogues gallery in the same way that a Batman or a Superman even has. So thankfully they didn't kill off the villains in the same way that they didn't kill off the Aquaman villains, because I kind of like when you can have multiple versions of the villain. This is what we talked about we've talked about this many times with, thank God the original or the new Star Wars trilogy has one villain throughout all three of them, as opposed to in the prequels where they killed one in each movie essentially. It's better that you can establish more of a harsher rapport between the villain and the hero. And I think that they've set it up so that they can make a couple of Shazam movies that involve Savannah and Black Adam and other people. Yeah. It'd be really cool.
The most intriguing antagonists are when you give them time to play off the protagonist, right?
Mm-hmm. Or when you try to humanize them.
Yeah, exactly.
Which they did in this opening.
Yeah, and it's super cool. I don't know much about... Again, I don't know anything about the comics for Shazam, but I'm guessing Savannah, pretty decent character in the comics as well. Is he in the 52 run?
Yeah, so that new 52... You're going to love the new 52 trade about Shazam because he gets Savannah and Black Adam.
Cool. Yeah, I'll have to pick that one up.
Yeah, Doc Savannah's really cool. Yeah, good villain. I think I like Dr. Savannah more than Black Adam because Black Adam's a cool character, but I always thought it was funny in comics when they just, to make an arch nemesis, they would get lazy and they just change the color of the costume and have them have all the same powers.
Yep.
They did that a lot with Black Adam and like the Reverse Flash and Bizarro and stuff like that. So I like him a lot, and he's great in this movie again as portrayed by Mark Strong. So
the whole reverse thing. I mean, like, I'm interested to see how they're going to pull off Black Adam, because that is one of the first. That's going to be one of the first superhero movies. I mean, like, in Iron Man 1, we have, hold on, oh boy, whoa there.
Okay, boy.
We're passing over Twin Falls, I think, right now.
No, not quite.
Not quite. In Iron Man 1, there you got Iron Man, and then he fights Jeff Bridges as bigger Iron Man at the end of it. The Ironmonger. Mm-hmm. And Black Adam is going to be one of the first comic book movies where it's literally about the opposite color scheme, kind of. Yeah. So I'm interested to see how audiences take to that.
Yeah. It'll be interesting.
We shall see.
When he fights the Justice Society.
Is that really?
Yeah. Didn't we talk about that on the pod? He's fighting. They're going to do his backstory from like 5,000 years ago, and then in the present day, when he gets woken up, he's going to have to combat. They said the ones they confirmed was Hawkman, Dr. Fate, and Cyclone, which are three prominent members of the Justice Society of America, which is one of my favorite underutilized superhero team. It's the JSA, America's first superhero team. Fuck you, Justice League. But yeah, so let's keep going with this plot.
Yep.
All right. So then we're in Philadelphia, and we're now
home of brotherly love.
We're now a couple years later on. I don't know if they ever actually say what year the Dr. Sivana opening is, like they did in Aquaman, where they just have freaking credit things under every change of scenery. But we get to meet our young Billy Batson here, played by Asher Angel, I think is his name.
That's the actor's name?
I think so. And he's at like a pawn shop, and these cops show up, and he's very much like straight out of the comics in the 40s. He says like "oh gee whiz" a lot and stuff like that, and "golly," which I think is really funny that they tied that in a comical way, because they're doing the Jeff Johns version of Billy Batson, which is he's the foster kid that is kind of a dick, and he has to learn good virtues, as opposed to in the 40s he was just always a nice kid who sold newspapers, and then he just got the powers of Shazam. So this is a really interesting way, and I'm really glad that Jeff Johns made it up, where he's kind of like mischievous, and he's stealing stuff, he's breaking in places, he's on the run from foster homes, and I like that characterization a lot. And we see that in this first scene, because he has the cops go into this pawn shop, and then he locks them in. And he goes into the cop car, and he's looking around.
Yo, don't do it! Yo, don't do it! And he grabs a sandwich, too, which I really like. I like that part. That was fun.
Steals the guy's Philly cheesesteak, and he's looking up, what's his mom's name? Something Batson. Like Mary Batson or something like that. Doesn't matter. He's looking up his mom.
I'll look it up.
And so he's looking in the cop database. And I think that this is a really funny scene, is he goes to the house, and he's on the front porch. This is a house in Philly. And he gets a little flashback to when his real mom, lost him at the carnival. And they're playing the game where you throw darts at the balloons, and young Billy, his mom doesn't quite get the prize that he wants, which is a tiger. Which, do you know why they include the tiger in there?
I do not.
Okay. You ever heard of Tawny the Tiger?
Tony the Tiger? It's
Tawny. Tawny?
No.
Okay. That's one of the members of the Shazam family in the 30s and 40s and 50s was a magical speaking tiger. Fact.
Whew.
So
comic books, baby.
It's just a little like throwaway Easter egg, essentially, that he wanted the tiger.
Cool.
But he doesn't. She gets this compass, right? And she gives him this compass orb, and he's looking at the compass. He actually drops it, and he goes off to get it, and he gets separated from his mom, and he's looking around and can't find her, and so the cops find him, and then that's how we come to find out that he's been in the foster system. So he goes up to this front doorstep, and I like how he knocks on it, and the person's like, "Who is it?" And he's like, "I think I'm your son." And then she opens it, and it's this black woman, and she's like, "You sure about that?" And he's like, "Never mind." I thought that joke landed really well in our theater for some reason, which that's why it kind of stands out to me. Is I think there was a black family sitting right in front of Grayson and I, and they thought that shit was hilarious. So
he's trying to hunt down his real mom.
That's and then the cops show up, and I like how the guy's like, "Did you eat my did you save me any sandwich left?" But yeah, so the cops get him, so he's gonna get put back into a new foster home, right? So he gets placed into a group home in Philadelphia, and we're introduced to, I can't ever remember their names, the foster parents. It's like Pedro. No, it's not Pedro. Anyway.
Hey, Pedro.
Pedro Pascal.
Get Michael Keaton flashbacks.
Yeah. So he gets placed into this group home with this couple that grew up in the foster.
Rosa and Victor.
That's what it is. Victor and Rosa. Also Jeff Johns' creations, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
So he gets placed into their group home, and they talk about how they used to both be in the foster system, and then they met each other, and now they're just helping out with these other kids in the area. So he gets taken back to their house, and I like how it's decorated for Christmas, and he starts to meet the other members of the group home. So we're introduced to Darla, who's this cute little girl who runs up and hugs him immediately and is very excited, and she's a hugger.
Darla slaps.
Darla's adorable.
Darla's awesome.
She gets a lot of funny stuff in this movie, but
she's so wholesome too. It's like you love seeing a character like that.
Yeah,
it's just so fun.
We introduced Eugene, who's like playing this video game, and he's like, die! And I liked how the what's his name, Victor goes up to him and takes the headphone off, and he's like, no soda at dark, and he's like, whoa, when did it get dark? I thought that was really funny. And then one of the other guys in the group home is Pedro, who's just like this quiet, bulky, weightlifting dude. And then Mary, who's on the phone applying for colleges, which I loved when she was like, why am I excited to go to college? And she looks at them for an answer. He's like, just tell me you're a foster kid.
Yeah, that's awesome.
They eat that shit up. So that we get a quick run through of meeting everybody. But Billy is eventually introduced to his roommate, which is a long-standing Captain Marvel character, which is Freddie Freeman, his best friend, who in the comics became Captain Marvel Jr. before they lost the rights in Wiz Comics. Yeah,
Junior.
The Shazam family used to be Captain Marvel, Mary Marvel, and Captain Marvel Jr., which was his sidekick. Even though Billy and Freddie were the same age, because Billy had the powers first, he just had to be called Junior.
No shit, that sucks.
And when he said Shazam to transform, Freddie's version of Captain Marvel was younger than Billy's, so that's why they called him Junior. It's so weird how they came up with that. But
did he have to say Shazam Junior when he to transform?
No, they just all say Shazam. Yeah, isn't that crazy?
That's interesting. I had no idea about that. So wait, so he and Mary Marvel fucking?
Who, Freddie?
No, I'm getting shit confused. Sorry. Shazam and
Mary Marvel.
Mary Marvel. Their son is Junior.
He's not their son. They're all friends.
They're all friends.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so they're not.
And they're all kind of similar in age. If I'm correct. I like how they make Mary older than him in the Jeff Johns iteration, and she's like, she's like the oldest of the house. I think that's pretty cool. So. But yeah, so he gets to meet everybody, and then he gets introduced to Freddie, and I really like this actor a lot, Jack Dylan Glazer.
Yeah, he's really funny.
He's in It, Chapter 1 and 2, and he's also really funny in this movie. Kind of, him and, like, Finn Wolfhard are, like, cleaning the crop right now of, like, quirky white nerd boys who are in movies.
It's a very specific niche that they fill.
But they're really cashing in on it. Yeah. But yeah, so he gets, him and Billy meet, and he's kind of like dicking around with him a little bit, saying that like it's a really dark place living here, and it gets real Game of Thrones around here after a while.
I like that line a lot, yeah.
My favorite line is he's like, look at your face, you're like, why are you doing this? You're a crippled foster kid, you have it all. It's just like, just really funny stuff. Like, he's got some really great stuff in this movie, and that was one of the things that I remembered when I saw it that I really enjoyed. Especially, we'll get to later on, once they start doing like what's his name gonna be, doing the powers tests and stuff like that. But we get to see this really interesting thing that they do in this movie, which is they're very self-aware that this exists in the DCEU. This kid's a big fan. He has t-shirts of all the logos that you can buy at Walmart for the movies that you and I have been talking about, but it's like they exist in the real world, and he's just fans of these metahumans. He's got a bullet that hits Superman that's certified authentic. It's like he's collecting baseball cards.
I think that's really cool.
Yeah, he's got a replica Batarang, all that kind of stuff. I just think it's interesting that there's like, it's like, what's that sports card company, Topps, where they like collect jersey pieces and put them in a card.
Yeah,
it's like that. So it's like if superheroes were real, they would be like professional athletes, right? These little young boys would be interested in buying certified authentic things, apparel, all that kinds of stuff, collecting toys.
Yep.
And I thought it was really cool that they were self-aware of that in this movie, because it makes it feel more grounded.
I agree.
To me. It's like Shazam exists in a world where Zach and John could be in that group home. You know what I mean? Talking about BBS. Like it was the news.
Yeah, like it's the news. It is the news. It's the truth.
Yeah.
And something I think that it's really, really cool about it is that, I do like that they make it exist in that world. We only get the Superman from the neck down cameo. Mm-hmm. My question to you is, do you think had Justice League, Batman v Superman, Suicide Squad, the whole like spiral out of control of DC, the movies, had those not gone as terribly, like, would Shazam have included these other characters like existing in this world as well?
I think there would have been. I think the tag at the end with Superman at lunch, I think that was always going to be in the movie. But I think we would have actually seen Henry Cavill's face if all of that shit didn't go down right before this movie came out. Because I remember a rumor around the rumor mill being like, Superman's in Shazam, and a lot of people were like, oh my god, are they going to fight? Like, all that kind of stuff. Like, is he going to get invited to the Justice League? I think the intention was for it to always be a joke. Always. But I think they just wound up doing the neck down thing for the reasons that we talked about in Wonder Woman, where it's like, if the DC universe implodes, the joke still lands, because it's not throwing it in your face. Like in Wonder Woman, she gets an email from Bruce Wayne, but you don't ever see Affleck, so it could be any iteration of Bruce Wayne you want. Same with this cameo by Superman at the end. It could be Christopher Reeves for all we know. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think so. This movie could have, and I know that this is kind of like apples and oranges, but this movie could have like been the Iron Man of the DCEU, where Iron Man.
They start out with Shazam.
Follow me here.
Yeah, I'm interested.
Iron Man, I had no the fuck idea who Tony Stark. Never heard the name Tony Stark until 2008.
Sure.
Never heard of sure Iron Man. I knew
Tony Stank.
Oh, what a cameo!
Package for Tony Stank. This is Tony Stank. Right
this
here.
is him. Where was I going? Where's the train?
He's the Iron Man.
Yeah. Okay. So. Yeah, Iron Man comes along, it revolutionizes comic book movies, it starts an entire franchise, you get these notes of other things in here. Shazam, never heard of him before, immediately lovable premise. I think this would have been a great opportunity to do what Zach and John have been saying for a long time, which is reboot the DCEU, start fresh, start from scratch, and the idea of these kids like looking up to heroes and like setting them up, kind of like salt and pepper that in there a little bit.
I think it'd be cool if they if this was the first one, and let's say like the rumor is that like this is the new DC movie, it's a character that not a lot of people know, and you go see it for the first time and Freddy's talking about Superman and Batman, you're like, I want to see this iteration of them. But because we've seen BVS before this, I'm always going to be like, when I watch Shazam, I'm going to be like, fuck, they're talking about Affleck. You know what I mean?
Exactly,
Or like, this is after,
and that's so,
Superman died.
It's so clearly Henry Cavill's suit.
Yeah.
When at the very last shot, so it's kind of like, it's kind of there. Yeah. And then we get this news where it's like, I don't know if you read this, it was like, this story broke a little bit ago, but they're saying that some inside sources saying like Flashpoint, the idea of the Flashpoint movie is to try and reset a lot of things and make a new path going forward for the DCEU films, and then let Matt Reeves do his own thing with Batman. But it's like, just do Shazam.
I just want the Justice League to be Shazam, Wonder Woman, and Arthur Curry, and Henry Cavill. And I don't want them to bog it down with Cyborg and Batfleck.
Sadfleck.
Yeah. So but yeah, I agree.
I just think it could have been cool. That's all.
It could have been cool. All right, so we switch up and we are now in like a briefing room where this lady is interviewing someone else over Zoom. They saw the future. 1 year ahead of the time, they're like, video calls are going to be a big deal.
Going to be a big deal.
April.
Buy stock.
Yep.
Buy stock. It's going up.
So they're having a Zoom call, and this lady's asking this woman about what we come to like remember from the beginning of the film, which is you're transported to this rock. You start to speak to an old wizard. You see these symbols appear on somewhere. This lady saw them on her alarm clock. And Dr. Savannah is kind of Mark Strong, the adult version. He's kind of sitting off to the side watching these interviews happen, and then he gets really excited and he gets invested and starts asking the woman about the symbols and where she saw them and all that stuff. And it's really cool that it's framed so that he's been searching for a way to get back there his whole life. And because he has money and power and is part of this big business, the Savannah Corporation, he can use it to fund what this other lady is thinking is psychological research, which is really cool. And we see this like this other scene where like there's multiple video calls of everybody talking about the symbols, right? Which I think is awesome. And you know, they go into the room. He like starts to piece it together that it's the symbols, and you got to do it 7 times. So he takes chalk and he writes it on this random door that he has set up that I think he's been trying to use to get back there because he's seen other people go through doors. And the lady's like, you don't even know this is working. You're going to look like a lunatic. And she like opens it and gets Thanos disintegrated.
It's vaporized. Yeah. Terrifying.
So he's figured out a way to access the Rock of Eternity. And I like how we see him do it at the beginning of the movie. And now he's already able to go there again. I like that they don't waste too much time. That's the good thing about this movie is I think it's paced really well.
Yeah, I mean, the pace is like, it's quick.
Yeah.
I could have done with a little bit more of, like, maybe show one failure before this.
Okay.
Because I think it would have been...
Where he opens it and there's nothing there.
Something like that, yeah, where it's like, you see that he's really, like, working... He's been dedicating years of his life to this study, like... Yeah. I think that would have been, you know, just more character development. But again, you want to move at a fast pace. I'm sure Warner Brothers had a mandate. They were like, don't make this long.
Yeah.
This
under
motherfucker...
2 hours.
Under 2 hours.
Yeah. Otherwise, kids won't be able to sit through it.
Yeah.
But yeah, so he gets back to the Rock of Eternity and he sees the wizard who's looking even more old and gray and weak. And I love this part where he's just kind of like monologuing to him. Like, he's like, do you know what it's like to be told as a child that you'll never be a good person? He's like, I've thought about that every day for the last however many years of my life. And he comes in there and he just like grabs the ball immediately, right? And he's just like, or maybe he takes the staff and knocks the guy over. I can't quite remember. But he's able to best the wizard because the wizard's really weak. I think the wizard tries to blast him and he like sidesteps it. So, and what he does is he gets the. Do you just want to call it the magic ball?
The orb from Guardians.
The orb from Guardians just pops into his eye hole.
Whoop!
And then, you know...
Which looked like that shit hurt.
Oh, it would have hurt, right? But his right eye is now that ball, and you can see that the 7 deadly sins are released because the wizard has been bested, and they go kind of like... It's like Voldemort and his crew. They kind of like Death Eater, Black Smoke their way into the eye wall. And that's kind of how that scene ends. So we get set up that he has the power of the 7 deadly sins contained in that orb. And he bests the wizard, and then he fucks off. Any other thoughts on that one?
I like the set design quite a bit. I think it's goofy and comic booky and very, very cool.
Yeah.
Is that similar to what it looks like in the comics?
Oh, straight up. Straight up, yeah.
Cool.
So then we go to... The kids are at school, right? And, you know, they're Billy's starting his first day, and Darla's like, have a good day, brother. And he's like, you know, we're not actually siblings. It's very heartbreaking. It's just like, he just shuts her down.
It's super sad. And it's like, again, it's like showing that little bit of character development, the way that she gets kind of upset when he doesn't want to reciprocate the feelings. It's super touching, and like it makes their relationship even stronger when he does finally decide to like call her his sister and stuff. Also, I want to note, super progressive school, metal detectors.
Yep.
Inner city Philadelphia, they got to go through metal detectors for this.
Yep.
This is also where the bully.
Well, what happens is they're kind of going throughout their first day of school, and Freddy tries to sit down with Billy and have lunch with him, and he's asking him if he'd rather have invisibility or flight. You know, and he's very much like I was when I was a kid. You know, like that's what I would want to talk to my friends about. But you can see that he kind of doesn't have any friends. He sits by himself, and people kind of think he's really weird and quirky, and they're walking away, and it's one of my favorite little throwaway moments is Billy empties his tray
awesome.
and puts it on top of the trash can, and Freddy just throws the whole tray in the trash can. But yeah, so that's when he kind of corners Billy, and he's like, I know you're going to run away again. Like, he's like, you've been moving around place to place. I can tell just by the way you're acting that you're going to leave. And he's like, you really shouldn't. And he's like, and I also know that you stole my bullet and that you're going to try to fence it for money. And he's like, I didn't do that. What are you talking about? You know, because he's a pathological liar and a klepto. But yeah, that's when then we get introduced to the bullies who, as they're kind of waiting to get picked up outside of the school, they like run their truck into him, which like, Jesus Christ,
yeah,
like
seriously.
vehicular manslaughter much.
Definitely getting arrested. Definitely going to juvie.
Yeah.
Even the shittiest parts of a shitty city, you would probably still get in a lot of trouble for that.
Right. So that they kind of run into him and they're like beating him up a little bit, and they throw his cane away and stuff like that. And Billy had kind of already started walking off at this point, and you know, it's just really, these boys are the worst kind of scum of the earth.
Shitheads.
Probably Trump supporters. But like, they're just so mean, and they're talking about how like he needs to get his fake family to help him and stuff like that. It's just like really rough stuff, and that's what I like about this movie, and it reminds me a lot of Spider-Man.
Right.
Like you're saying, is like real world examples of villains that you can see in your everyday life are like bigots and like just people that are just, you know, really harsh to minorities and people that don't have it, quote unquote, the way that, you know, as good as they do.
You're still taking pictures of your friend, the bug. I really wanted some James Franco in this movie. I could do with some Tobey Maguire, James Franco in this. I was thinking Shazam 2. Who's another villain? Can we cast Tobey Maguire as Mr. Mind or whatever?
Maybe. He could only be a voice though. Unless Mr. Mind controls Tobey Maguire. And like Tobey Maguire's just working at an office one day, and then all of a sudden a caterpillar like crawls in his ear. That would be cool.
Hey Billy.
Hey Billy.
I'm Spider-Man. I'm Mr. Mind.
Yeah.
It's nice to meet you.
But yeah, so they're beating the shit out of Freddy, pretty much for no reason other than the fact that they're just picking on him.
Yep.
And then Billy comes back and hits them with the cane and hits them in the nuts and stuff like that. And I love how he's like, "Oh, sorry, that wasn't really fair, but I guess you don't really fight fair, do you?" And then the bullies kind of go off and chase him, so he kind of hits and runs because they're going to start to fight back. And as he's escaping the bullies in the subway station, he gets on a train at the last second and kind of, you know, it leaves the station before the bullies can get on there. And there's several other people on the train car, but in the same way that Savannah at the beginning had it, everyone just kind of like disappears.
Yep.
And the sign inside the train that tells you where the next station is changes to the same hieroglyphics that we just saw Savannah use, and Billy is in the Rock of Eternity. He's kind of wandering around, and he goes into the main chamber that we've already seen twice now, which is a great way to set up how it works before Billy even gets there.
Do they say Rock of Eternity in the movie at all?
I think he does right now, like the wizard.
The wizard does at
Yes.
this scene?
Yeah.
Okay.
So Billy goes up, and the wizard is talking to him about how, you know, he's been searching for a champion, and that he's only been looking for one with true goodness in his heart, and that this must be the champion that has been brought to him. And that he's kind of run out of options because the evil is out there in the world now. The 7 deadly sins are released. He wasn't strong enough. And he explains that, you know, here at the Rock of Eternity, the wizards once chose a champion long ago who wound up abusing the power, and that's actually our Black Adam prelude.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, cool.
So that was the original champion for Shazam.
So you think they're going to get Jaimon Humsu back in?
Most definitely.
Yeah.
Most definitely. And I think we'll see the other wizards there too.
Cool.
Which would be awesome.
They should just cast all pro wrestlers from like the 90s, like from the Attitude Era. Get like
Macho Man Randy Savage.
You want to be a wizard?
All right, brother.
I got you for 3 minutes of playtime.
Oh my goodness. But yeah, so that's our prelude to Black Adam.
Cool. I didn't know that.
You know, and we get this great part where he's like, "I need you to be my champion." He's like, "Put your hand on my staff and say my name." Yeah, he's like, gross. He's like, "And say my name." And he's like, "I don't know what your name is." And we get to hear that it's Shazam, and he kind of giggles at that, and then he's like, "Say it." And he says Shazam, and our little Billy Batson turns into Zachary Levi.
And what a fucking body, dude.
What a glow up.
Zachary Levi looks fucking good.
He got really jacked.
That suit.
He
Yeah,
got really
he's
jacked. I think that suit also has a little bit of padding.
I'm sure it does.
But he did, I mean, Affleck's did too, and so does Henry Cavill's, but these guys are still pretty jacked. The cool thing about Zachary Levi's character as Shazam, because that's what he looks like when he changes into the costume, Zach Levi only ever needs to wear that.
Yeah, right.
He only has one costume. Whereas, like, the kid who plays Billy has multiple outfits and stuff like that.
And they kind of imply that he can't really, like, take it off.
He doesn't know how to take it off, yeah.
So it's like, it's fascinating too because it solves the issue of like we were saying, like, yeah, he looks good, he's cut up, Zachary Levi, good looking guy. I'm sure he worked out like a motherfucker, but
yeah.
he also does, because of the powers of the suit, he doesn't have to have the Thor bath scene where he's cut and shredded and he takes his shirt off and the ladies in the audience go ooh ah, and it doesn't really feel like that.
Yeah.
He does, because it's a kid.
Yeah.
You're not supposed to sexualize
a preteen boy
yeah. who's like a superhero, which is interesting.
The farthest they go is that he like tries to hit on people, and the women that he hits on are just not interested because he looks like a Vegas performer.
Yeah, right. I love it. I love the costume. I think the costume is so fucking rad. It's rad.
The Jeff Johns run with Gary Frank as the artist is when they introduced the hood. I think the hood's really cool on the cape and stuff like that. But yeah, he's always had like the kind of sparkle cape and stuff. And the costume, I think they did a good job of making it look kind of whimsical for a film.
It is a straight up most comic booky looking cartoon superhero suit
since the orange Aquaman suit that we just saw.
Orange Aquaman suit. I would also throw in like Captain Marvel's suit, like
or Spider-Man
suit too. Yeah,
yeah.
But just like super colorful, vivid. The saturation turned all the way the fuck up.
Yeah, this movie is very bright and colorful, whilst also having really dark moments.
Yeah, it's not afraid to get.
We're now in the forest fire territory.
I was about to say, we're driving through. We're getting close to all that stuff, but I thought for a second it was just because I have my like polarized lenses on, but no, it's actually forest fire.
Smoky out here. Hey, say hi to Snake River again.
Hey, Snake River.
All right, so now is when the movie just starts just nailing 3-pointers. It's like LeBron James going off at the end of a playoff game. So Billy goes back to the house. All the kids are kind of hanging out there. They're asking Freddie where Billy is, and he's like, I'm not entirely sure. And Freddie's like washing dishes. And Shazam slaps like a be
don't
quiet
scream.
Or like don't scream
yeah.
on a piece of paper on the window, and Freddie freaks out and he's like, it's me, it's Billy, I need your help, like please meet me outside after the lights out. And so Victor comes in, he's like, what happened? He's like, oh no, I'm just so worried about Billy that I like scream. And so he goes outside and he's like super excited, and he's like, he's like got 911 pulled up on the phone, and he's like, how do I know that you're Billy? And he's like, because I did steal your bullet here. And he like pulls it up and stuff like that too.
Doesn't he drop it down the grate or whatever?
Yeah, well, yeah, and before that too, he's like, how do I know that you're not somebody being mind controlled? Or like, how do I know that you're not projecting images into my head to make me think that you have my bullet and stuff like that? He's like, dude, I don't even know how to pee in this thing.
Yeah.
Like, how would I know that? But yeah, he accidentally drops the bullet down the grate, which is kind of a bummer, but he could just get a couple more in a few minutes when they shoot Shazam at the convenience store.
Right.
But yeah, so like they're really kind of excited, but they're also nervous a little bit, especially Billy, because he doesn't know how to change back. But like you can see how like the sparkle, the lightning comes out of the lightning bolt insignia and stuff, and he's like, what are your powers? And he's like, I don't really know. And so they kind of start practicing with some of them, right? Which is like, can you turn
totally what you would do if you were a superhero.
He's like, can you turn invisible? And he's like, oh, let me try. And it looks like he's about to
clenches
poop.
Up.
He looks like he's about to poop himself. And then Freddy like,
oh my god, you're invisible.
He fucks with him. He's like, where did he go? And he's like, ho ho! And he's like dancing around and stuff like that. And then some other guys off in the corner like, hey, jackass, nice costume. Which is really funny. I think he tries to fly too, where he's like, you just have to believe you can fly. And he tries to jump off the car and just face plants.
Yeah.
And so they're just kind of wondering...
Again, Spider-Man. My back!
Yeah, exactly.
My back!
And they're kind of wondering what else he can do, and he, like, is explaining how he's like, I don't really know what I can do, and he does, like, a finger guns thing on accident, and he zaps the Transformer, and they get really excited. So they go to the local playground, and he's, like, Emperor Palpatining, like, this kid's, like, monkey bars
thing.
The
jungle gym, yeah.
Yeah. The jungle gym, and you can see the lightning working there. And they're kind of like awe-inspired about it. and they see like a mugging going on the other side of the park, and he's like, you gotta go help him, this is what heroes do. And he like zips over there, because he's, it's like how your powers develop is you just do instinctive things, right?
Yeah.
Same with the X-Men and all that kind of stuff. He like zips over there and blasts the dude over.
Definitely a broken spine.
And he's like they're just like very excited. He's like super speed and stuff like that. And then he's like asking if the lady's okay, and now she thinks she's gonna get mugged by this creepy guy in the costume, which I absolutely love. Yeah. And she's got the pepper spray, and he's like, yeah, good call on the pepper spray, definitely. And the guy like gets up and he accidentally like knocks him again, right? And he like throws him really far.
He goes to like touch him or something, and then he just like
yeah. So then they find out he has super strength, and the lady just like gives him money. He's like, I don't even want to know what happened here. Like, just please don't follow me. And she leaves. But I like when she's like, who are you? This is the part that made me crack up in the theater. Freddie like limps over. He's like, his name's Thundercrack. And he's like, and he's the protector of Philadelphia. And I was like, I just think that name's really funny. And Shazam's like, nah, dude, they're gonna think that's like butt stuff.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh,
yeah.
It's so funny.
Yeah, this whole sequence is pure comic book excellence.
It's just pure fun film stuff.
Yeah,
right?
It's so wholesome. It's so fun. It's like, this is literally, if you would have opened up a time portal to when we saw Batman v Superman and showed us like, hey, this is where DC's gonna go in a few years, we would have been like, you're fucking insane.
No way. Yeah.
So I love it.
Yeah. So with the money, now that they realize he's an adult, the next obvious thing to do is they're gonna go try and buy beer. And I love how they just cut to the next scene. He's like, I'd like a case of your finest beer, please. And he deepens his voice even though he doesn't need to.
The shot of the clerk like looking at him and then just
points toward the beer. But I love how he turns to walk towards it. You see Freddy's like right behind him,
but he's just like staring, and then he kind of like quickly like scurries off, and it's great. Yeah, some of the physical comedy in this is really great too. Really like Zachary Levi's really good at
facial expressions.
Yeah, facial expressions. Just the look on his face and the way that he deepens his voice when he says it it's so funny.
Yeah. So they go over and they're going to try and pick out beer, and they're like, I don't even know what any of this is. Like, they're just trying to look, and then...
it's like, what if this doesn't work, or whatever?
Yeah,
it's like the fake ID. It's like, you are the fake ID.
Yeah,
I like that.
Yeah. But then these guys come in with guns, and they're going to hold up the convenience store, because, like, of course they are. And he's like, oh, you got to go help them out. And I like how he just walks over there, and he's like, excuse me, sir. He's like, you should just put down the gun and walk away. I'm a superhero. He's like, I'm very strong. And he's like, oh wait, we don't know if you're bulletproof yet. And they like turn and he shoots him.
Well, he's like, shoot me. He goes, shoot me in the chest. Or
he's like, go ahead, dude, give it a shot. Shoot me in the chest. And they shoot him and the bullets fall off. And they're like, you have bullet immunity. And then this is the part that they didn't show in the trailer, which I love, which is he's like, we don't know if it's the suit or if it's your skin. So you gotta shoot him in the face. And he's like, yeah, shoot me in the... Wait, what? And they go, and they just like unload into his head, and it's just like bouncing off, which is really funny. Again, physical comedy.
Right.
And then he like looks back at them, and he's like, dude, I'm bulletproof. And he looks back, you're dead. And throws them through the window.
I think this is hilarious because it's like, yeah, this is totally what kids would do if they found out they had superpowers, so on and so forth. But can you fucking imagine if, like, he wasn't bullet immune and he just dies? How dark that shit would be.
Well, what I like is how Freddy's filming all this on his phone to put on YouTube, and he's
great.
He's like, we're here, and Sparkle Fingers just got shot, and we're gonna find out if he's bullet immune. But yeah, man. So they get the beer, and they go out and they try it, and they both hate it. So they go back in and they get like jerky and Red Bull and candy and like stuff that kids would get, right? And I like how they go to the Rocky Steps in Philly, and they're eating their snacks, and he's like, Freddy's like, we should probably get home. He's like, but I like this version of you a lot better. He's like, I don't know how we're gonna change back. Like, he's like, I'll try and sneak you in, right? So they get back to the house, and they're trying to sneak him upstairs, and he's like stepping on creaky things, and they the parents are trying to find Billy. They think he ran away, or they think something happened with the bullies. But, you know, they're like, is that you, Freddy? And he's like, yeah. He's like, I'm just with Billy. I mean, I don't know. Yeah, Billy just showed up, but he's really tired. He's not feeling good, so we're going to go to bed. And they're like, well, we got to see him at least once. And so they scurry into Darla's room on accident. And she's, like, kind of freaking out at first. But then he explains that it's Billy. and they're freaking out because Rose is coming up the stairs, and he's like, I don't know, I just went into this cave, and then the wizard made me say Shazam, and then that's when he changes back to Billy.
Yep.
And so they figured out that is how his powers work, is he just needs to say Shazam, and he'll be good to go. So he asks Darla to keep this a secret, saying that good sisters keep secrets. He asks Freddie if she's good at keeping secrets, or he asks her, and she's like, kind of, and he's like, that's no. But yeah, so very, very fun comical stuff. Right?
Oh yeah, I really liked him walking up the stairs, and he's just like, his body weight from the massive muscular stuff is just like creaking the stairs.
Yeah. So the next thing is we get some more FaceTime with our villain. So Dr. Savannah shows up to the Savannah building, and he's got his black trench coat on now and sunglasses to hide his creepy eye. And he just storms into what we're led to believe is like a board of directors meeting, I'm guessing, for the company. And his dad and his brother on the board, and it's their adult versions. And he comes in there and kind of starts accosting them about how, he is powerful now and he has true power. And they always said he wouldn't be powerful, but he's here to show them that he is, and that they are truly not powerful, and that they think they are, but they don't know what real power is. And so he lets all of the 7 deadly sins out except for one into the boardroom, and they're freaking creepy looking.
Yeah,
and these people start freaking out. This kind of reminds me of the boardroom scene in Dogma a little bit.
Oh,
remember that?
Yeah,
when Loki kills everybody in there.
This is the most Sam Raimi scene in the movie for me too. Like it's that like schlocky B movie horror. The way that it's like Spider-Man 2 with the Doc Ock hospital scene, where it's like all the one guy bringing the coffee walks up, and then like the hands and everything is on the walls and everyone's screaming. It's like, it's really kind of scary.
Yeah. So it is kind of creepy, but his brother and his dad are killed.
Yep.
He kills both of them. He exacts his revenge on them.
Not just kills, he has one of the deadly sins pick his dad up and throw him out the window.
Uh-huh.
Terrifying. Terrifying.
So yeah. So Savannah is putting those powers to good use so far, right?
Yeah.
Just getting all those 7 deadly sins out into the world. Let's see. What's next? Okay. So the next thing we see is they go to school again. It's right out in front, and the bullies get out, and they just park their truck wherever they want because they're douchebags. And they turn around, and the truck's missing. He's like, dude, what happened to my truck? It falls from the sky, and it's completely smashed up.
So how do you think he went about doing that? Do you think he ran up behind the truck?
He ran up in there really fast,
threw it up, and then ran away,
and then it fell back down.
There you go.
Yeah. That's what I think happened.
Because at this point, he doesn't know how to fly.
Right.
So he must have just had to do that real quick. But yeah.
Yeah. So,
I buy it.
So they smash the truck, and this leads us into a montage it leads us into a scene where Billy's going to try to get Freddy out of school so they can go do some superpower tests. So they walk into the school together, and he's like, they're talking about how they're going to do the Ferris Bueller's Day Off thing, where he's going to pretend to be his dad and check him out, or an uncle or something like that.
Right.
And I like how he's like, oh yeah, our ride's just right around the corner. He goes in there, like says it, and he turns back in, and then
he's put like a trench coat
over the costume. He's like, oh, hello, son that I definitely haven't just seen recently, and my other son over there. I'm here to check them out of school, please. He's like, is this the security guard that all the kids really like? And he's like, no, this is the lame one.
That line got me.
Which is just so funny. But yeah, so they're able to play hooky from school, and we get our Queen. This is why the budget was so much higher, is they paid for Don't Stop Me Now by Queen right after the Bohemian Rhapsody hype the year before.
Right.
And we get the montage that we had kind of seen in the trailers, but even more so, them doing different superpower tests, right? So super strength and punching through the wall, and flight where he jumps up and he falls back down. I like where he does teleportation between the 2 boxes, and then he changes it to secret flammable test.
Yeah.
And he pours gas on the box and lights it on fire, and he pops out and he's freaking out.
Yeah, this whole thing is, again, I love the idea of just what would kids do if they found out they had superpowers.
Yeah.
And it, of course, in our modern era, they become YouTube stars.
Exactly. So they get the montage, of that, and they also in the montage they see like YouTube likes going up, right? It's like climbing views and stuff like that. And so they're in school again the next day, and they're walking around, and people are talking about Captain Sparklefingers and all the names that he's been giving him. And the bullies kind of come up to him, and Freddy lets it drop that he knows Captain Sparklefingers very well, and that he'll come to lunch and prove it because he's just trying to be a little popular, and maybe get these bullies off of his back. And Billy is kind of upset with Freddy because he's like, these are my abilities. He's like, I think you're just kind of using me a little bit like that. And he's like, because I think you wish you had. No, that's the part that happens later. That's a really great moment.
Yeah, that is.
We'll get there.
Like when he runs away from him and everything.
So he kind of gets into a scuffle about it, about how he's like, these are my powers, not yours. And he's like, yeah. He's like, but we're in this together as a team, right? And he's like, no. And he's like, well, you can try and sneak me out of school. I can go with you. And he's like, and he just kind of leaves. So he leaves Freddy behind, goes out for a day on his own, and we see that their main form of superheroing is he just does tricks and takes pictures and selfies for money. And the lady like gets a selfie with him, and he's like, normally people pay me, It's just really funny that he's like,
is this lightning with my hands moment?
Yeah, pretty soon. We get to he has that moment with Mary first.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
where he saves her from the car.
I just think it's funny that he's essentially like the people that dress up like Spider-Man on Sunset Boulevard in Los Angeles.
Yeah, or Times Square.
Yeah, where they're just like pretending to be a superhero for cash. And so after he takes the picture with the lady and asks for money, he sees someone crossing the street who's texting, that's about to get hit by a truck. So he super speeds over there, and we see that it's Mary from the group home, and she's crying. And he asks her why, and she says that she got into the college that she really wanted to. And he's like, you should be excited. And he's like, families are overrated, all that kind of stuff. And she's torn up about it because she likes living in the group home, and she likes the family that she's had. And he calls her Mary, and she kind of puts it together that maybe, why would he know what my name is? I never even introduced myself. And he's like talking, he's like, I don't remember what the line is. Maybe it is like, families are overrated or unnecessary, something like that. He's like, I think Gandhi said that. She's like, no, I don't think so. He's like, well, there's definitely Yoda or somebody.
Yeah.
But yeah, so he kind of leaves because it gets a little awkward.
I think there's a good chance that they play up some sort of romance between these two characters moving forward in the movies.
Because she's like going to college, right? So she's 18, and Billy's probably like 14.
Yeah, but
you're stepping on some Phantom Menace territories.
Well, there. Wait a few years. You know, I mean, like, it doesn't have to be like,
I think if
passionate romance, but like it could be like a cutesy, like,
sure, maybe like where he has a crush on her, but she's not
right, exactly, something like that. Because I think that
like Squints and like Sandlot and stuff.
Sure.
Yeah, I think if they were the same age, it's very likely that there would have been a romance. But since they're doing the group home method, the Jeff Johns with all the other kids in it, I think it's more of like she's going to be like the motherly figure to all of them, kind of like Wendy in Neverland, and stuff like that. Thank you. So then our next scene is Lighting with My Hands.
Lighting with my hands.
Which she's doing to
Lighting with my hands.
Eye of the Tiger, which is a classic Philly song.
So great.
He's just shooting lightning in the air.
And I love the look of this, too, because it's kind of, like, dark.
It's Philly. It's, like, gray outside. And kind of wintry and cold. Christmas season. And Freddy's off of school, and he kind of wanders up to the crowd that's watching him, and he just kind of starts telling him that this isn't what real superheroes do, and that they don't just do tricks for money, and he's getting really angry, and they start to argue, and this is one of the parts that I really like, which is where he accidentally shoots the lightning, and it like blasts this bus, and the bus starts to go off the side, and this is an accident that he's caused. So he zips over there, and he's gonna try and catch it, but first, before he does that, he like slides one twin mattress under the bus.
Yeah, right.
And the guy,
the guy that he like shakes his head or whatever.
The guy that's in the bus is like, no, man, no. So the bus falls, and he catches it.
Yeah.
And sets it down, and he's like really excited that he could catch a whole bus. And Freddy,
I like the dog.
Yes.
With the dog, like, where it sits down, it's like, bad dog. He's
like, move, doggy, move. So Freddy comes over and is like telling him that he's not being a true hero, and that he's like, I just caught a bus. He's like, yeah, that you accidentally zapped on your own. He's like, you're just not doing this the right way. You're being very selfish. And he's like, I love this part where he's like, you just wish that you had these powers. And Freddy's like, yeah, I mean, look at me. He's like, because no one else will, you know? And he's very much playing into, he's, you know, kind of this nerdy, quirky, insecure kid who has a disability that nobody wants to be friends with, and people kind of skirt around him, and at lunch nobody will sit with him. And he's like, I would kill to have what you have right now, the ability to change into somebody else. He's like, I always wanted, you said when we talked about flight or invisibility, you wanted flight to fly away from the conversation. He's like, I've always wanted invisibility so that people don't even have to see me, you know, stuff like that. So it's very, very harsh.
It's great characterization, though.
It is.
And I have a comic question: is Freddy disabled in the comics as well? Like,
in the Jeff Johns one, he is.
He is, okay. So it sounds like this Shazam movie is pretty much just ripped right out of the pages of the Jeff Johns.
Pretty much.
Okay, cool.
Mm-hmm. Pretty much. So somebody was recording this. You know, the news is catching it because it's like the kid talking to the hero. And, you know, Freddy leaves saying that he's being a jerk. And then he's like, fine, whatever, boy that I don't know. And then this is when Savannah shows up because the demons earlier were talking, when he was explaining true power to his dad, the demons earlier were explaining that there is one champion that he'll have to defeat, and he'll have to get the wizard's power to be really, truly powerful.
Isn't he on TV doing an interview with someone?
Yeah,
that's
like
how
right after the bus.
Right.
Yeah. So him and Savannah, you know, Savannah shows up and he's like, you know, give me your powers and stuff like that. And he's just kind of goofing around first and gets a sucker punch in there, and then he realizes that Savannah's kind of like also really strong, and they start having this fight where,
oh, bad guy.
he's like, you're the bad guy, right? Where he gets in trouble, you know, and gets tossed around a little bit. They go to the mall and he's trying to escape. I like when he crashes into the changing room and he's like, you don't have to do this, you don't have to do this, you don't have to do this. And then he like busts through the wall. He's like, oh God, you're doing this. And then I like when they bust through the wall in the mall and there's like a toy store.
Yep.
And he picks up a Batman doll and he's like, I'm Batman. He's like, save me, Batman. And he like,
get him, Batman.
He like throws it.
Apparently that line was improvised by Zachary Levi. Yeah.
I like that quite a bit. So they're just fighting, and Savannah's kind of talking to him about. He's like, you grovel like a child, you know, and stuff like that. He's like, that's because I am a kid. And he's able to eventually get away from Savannah by saying Shazam in a crowd, so he can turn back into a kid.
Well, we can't.
But
John, we can't pass the big reference.
Okay.
The piano. That shit is awesome.
Oh, right.
Where he's like standing there and then he's ding dong ding, and the kids just run to him. I love that gag so much. It's so funny because it's like no other sound except for the terrible offbeat notes of the piano as he's running to kick his ass.
Yeah.
God, I love that shit.
I also like
so funny.
The girl's like visiting the mall Santa, and he's like, Santa's always there for you. And then like it blows up, and he's like, oh God! And he like runs away. And that Santa will come back a little later on too. But yeah, so he's able to escape Savannah by turning into a kid, and then Savannah looks at the TV and he sees that Shazam was talking to Freddy, and Freddy just so happens to be at the mall because he saw, you know, a scuffle going on earlier, and he followed the sound of all the screamings and stuff, and so Savannah puts two and two together that this boy must know, you know, the true intentions of, or where he is even from.
Right. And we're back. Little pit stop there.
So, in our story, Mary and some of the other kids back at the group home are discussing about how, you know, it was really weird that she got saved by the hero and that he doesn't seem to be, you know, doing a bunch of heroic stuff like they were discussing at dinner, which is a scene that I think we forgot to talk about, which was Freddy and Billy kind of arguing
at the table,
like a married couple about what a hero should mean. This was after they have their falling out, before lightning with my hands and all that kind of stuff. But as this happens, they get a knock on the door, and before they open the door, there's a TV, and they see that Freddy is talking to Billy, and all the kids kind of piece it together that Billy must be the superhero, because why else would Freddy be arguing with the new Philly superhero like that? And so Darla opens the door thinking that it's Billy, because he's lost, and Victor and Rosa are out looking for him. And Darla opens the door, and we got Freddy and Dr. Savannah come in because they've taken Freddy prisoner.
Yeah, something I like about all this stuff with, like, the kids and the superpowers and stuff, I like that there's no, like, baggage like there typically is with this stuff, like the trying to hide it from everybody. Like, yeah, there's the one funny scene, but it's like once the kids know, they know, and it's not like you have to try and, like, bullshit your way around it. It's they just know.
They just accept it.
Yeah, there's no problem with that.
Yeah, there's no big issues there. But yeah, so Savannah comes in, and he's, like, talking about how the home's really quaint, and then he looks around, and he's like, actually, scratch that. This place is a shithole. Which I think is kind of a overly harsh line delivery.
I think it's just at this point, bad guys being bad guy.
Yeah, I know, but for the sake of that, like, he's just being overly critical of this foster home for some reason. But anyway, so he comes in and he's like, I need to speak to the champion, and I like how he keeps calling him the champion because he doesn't know his name.
Yeah.
And this is actually what draws Billy back to the house. Sorry about that.
No, train tracks, that's fine.
Yeah, what draws Billy back to the house is he comes out into the yard, and they're discussing about how they're going to do a hostage situation, essentially, and Savannah wants Billy to surrender his powers, and then he'll let them live. And so what happens is Billy goes to the Rock of Eternity with him, where he's going to surrender his powers to Savannah via touching the staff again. And the kids are wondering what they should do, and they wind up coming after him. And he's discussing, this is a really cool moment where Billy's talking to Savannah in the Rock of Eternity, and he's like, I get how you're feeling, like you're super alone. Oh, you know what? We missed something.
What did we miss?
While Billy, before Savannah comes there, I can't believe I messed this up.
Oh, is it this?
Yeah.
This is where he goes to see his mom?
Yeah, we completely messed this up.
That's fine, everybody. It's fine. We're in a car.
Before Freddy and Savannah go there, the kids piece together, kind of who Billy is. He shows up, and they want to know where Freddy is, and he says he doesn't know, and then he's going to leave. And Pedro had found his notebook that has all of the different Mrs. Batsons that he's been trying to find. And Eugene, who's a computer-savvy kid, did some tech wizardry stuff and was able to track down that Billy's actual birth mom lives only a couple of bus stops away. So Billy goes and visits his real mom, and this is actually a really good scene.
Yeah, this is one of the highlights of the movie for me. I wasn't expecting it. I knew nothing about Shazam. I knew nothing about what was happening. I didn't see this coming at all.
Yeah. So right after Billy left to see his mom is when Savannah showed up with Freddy, right? So then Billy's off visiting his mom. And this scene, he knocks on the door, and this woman answers it, and she thinks he's a solicitor.
Well, there's like some arguing behind the door, too. Yeah. You hear like some scuffling, maybe.
Some arguments with whoever she's living with now. And she comes out there, and the reason why Billy had never been able to find her is that she went back to using her maiden name, because Billy's dad's been in prison for his whole life. Mr. Batson, whoever his name is.
Does he ever play a big part?
I don't think so.
No.
But so Billy's talking to her, and he's like, I'm your son, like, I've been trying to find you. And it's such a great, it's so sad, but it's a really well-crafted scene. Like, he goes in for the hug, and she, like, stops him, which is just heartbreaking. And, he wants to know, like, how, he's like, I'm sorry that we got separated. Like, it's all my fault. I ran off to try and get the compass. And she's like, what compass? And then we get to see her point of view, and she explains that, Billy was a teenage pregnancy, and that his dad had already stepped out on her, and she was not doing very well, and we get to see a flip side of the scene, kind of like a Rashomon effect almost that we had seen earlier, where she's trying to win him the tiger, and she seems very stressed out, and she's like, I wasn't sleeping much because you were, a baby, and I was trying to take care of you by myself. And she's like, and you went off to find somebody, like, thinking that he was going to look for something. And she's like, and we got separated, and I looked for you for a little bit, but then I saw you with the police, and I realized that they could take better care of you than I ever could. So there's a great shot of her looking off in the distance at Billy with the cops, and she just turns and walks away.
Gut-wrenching, man.
Yeah, and it's gut-wrenching after this, too, because then she asks Billy, she's like, you're good, though, right? Like, you landed on your feet, which is just such a...
It's so horrible. Yeah,
it's dick
terrible.
Thing to ask, like, you landed on your feet after I abandoned you as a baby. And he explains that he's been jumping around, I don't know, it's just really sad.
It's like just base. It's like it's pure evil. It's not a comic book villain, but it's like it's the dark side of humanity.
Yeah.
It's like this person that clearly doesn't understand that being abandoned as a child is going to completely fuck you up. Like, all the things that you have to deal with, the hurdles in your life, the fact that she's so passive about it, and when he's like, I was figuring we could like talk, and she's like, it's not a really good time right now. It's
not
like,
a good time, but it could be. And he's like, this is a cool part, because earlier in the movie, Rosa had been like, you know how it is, it's not home until you want to call it home. And so Billy gives his mom the compass that apparently she had given him, but we come to find out she didn't even get that for him at the prize wall. He must have gotten it somewhere else when he was young. And he gives it to her, and he's like, I think you're going to need this more than I do. Because the guy that she's living with is like screaming at her in the background, like, who is it? You know, and all this kind of stuff. It's really heartbreaking stuff. But he goes off and he calls Freddie on the phone. He's going to apologize. Yeah. And that's when Savannah picks up the phone that he's at the house with all the kids.
Cool.
So then Shazam comes back. They do the swap. They go to the Rock of Eternity. And this is why Shazam is talking to Savannah. He's like, I know how you feel. Like, you feel like you're alone and it's just you. He's like, but there's always something better than that. Just kind of setting up this really interesting showdown where Billy, even though he's a kid, is going to be able to crack a little bit into Savannah's motivations that we'll see later on during the battle, which I think is pretty tight. Yeah. And then they have this moment that in the theater when it happened, my stomach did a flip because I thought it was about to get derailed, where a batarang gets thrown and hits Savannah in the back of the head, and all of the demons are sitting around and they're going to watch as Shazam gives his powers up. And I was like, oh my god, if Batman shows up in this movie, it's going to completely derail this thing. And that was only for a microsecond, because then he turns around and you see it was all the kids there and Freddy had thrown that replica.
Yeah.
Did you think it was Batman at any point?
No, I did not.
Okay.
Because
I did.
I thought that there were rumors before this came out that, like, this was right around the time when it was Batfleck is done with the DCEU.
Right,
like, Ben Affleck's drama. He finally dropped out of Matt Reeves.
And he dropped out of the directorial long before that.
Yep, so there was all that drama, so I was like, oh, and they set up so much with Freddy that I was just like, it makes sense, it's Freddy.
But yeah, so all the kids kind of have, like, household things, like, I think Pedro has, like, a lamp or something. And there's
wait, hold on, I need to back up. Even without the Batman drama, like Batfleck drama, had it been Batman in the movie, would you have derailed it in a bad way or a good way?
Bad way.
Really? So you didn't want Batman to show up in the Rock of Eternity to fight?
Absolutely not. Because it would just take me out of the movie completely, and I feel like it would really undercut what we wind up getting.
Okay, cool.
You know what I mean?
I'm fine.
Like,
yeah, I get it.
Don't do a ham-fisted cameo just for the sake of having Batman in the movie, because then it becomes a Batman scene, not a Shazam family scene.
Yeah.
But yeah, so while he's turned around to face the kids, this is when we see that when all of the demons are outside of Savannah, he becomes a little more mortal, and there's like a cut on the back of his head.
Yeah.
So there's kind of a slight little fight breaks out, and the kids are able to kind of run away from Savannah. They kind of knock him on his ass a little bit.
Yep.
And this is when they come into the room with multiple doors that you and I were talking about earlier.
Cool scene, man.
Kinda
I love
whimsical.
the visuals. I think it's like just a little spooky.
Yeah.
Kind of nifty.
Yeah. I have a note in here that one of the 7 sins has the same voice as the Cave of Wonders from Aladdin. I'm almost positive.
Really?
It sounds just like the Cave of Wonders.
Interesting.
But I could be completely wrong there. But yeah, so there's the doors, which I think is really cool because the doors go to the different monster lands, right? It's like Pedro opens one and like a tentacle comes out. And one of the things that Billy and Freddy had done earlier in the movie was Billy went into a strip club to see what it was like.
Yeah,
and he spent all of his money really fast. He's like, they're very persuasive. But now this time they're like, Billy, how did you get out of here last time? He's like, I just imagined I was back on the train. So they're like, just think of the first place you can possibly think of. And he teleports all of the kids to the strip club.
Yeah.
Which I think is really funny.
Hilarious.
Oh my goodness, which road are we going on?
Oh boy. We're out here in the sticks, baby. We gotta traverse this shit right.
Yep.
Did we make the right turn?
Yes.
Cool.
Sorry about that.
No, that's fine. That's good radio.
Yeah, definitely. So they go to the strip club and they come out and they're covering up Darla's eyes a little bit. And she's like, why can't I see? And Mary's like, because you're definitely not old enough. And they're like, Billy, why is this the first place that you think of? And I love how, like, Freddy comes out and he's like, all right, thanks, guys.
He's like swinging.
Yeah, he's like very happy and stuff. And he's covered in glitter or something like that. And Darla's like, they have glitter? I want the glitter. And she's like, not from there, you don't. It's just really funny.
Also, I forget what, is it Pedro, the chubbier kid? It comes out and he's like, it's not for me.
Yeah, so he's gay, right?
Yeah. Or that's at least what's implied.
I think that's cool.
Is his sexuality ever talked about?
I don't remember.
Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, so then they flee from the strip club to the winter carnival. So there's like some type of winter carnival that Philly does around Christmas time, and we see the bullies are kind of like hanging out, spitting on people from the top of the Ferris wheel and all that stuff. And Billy, he gets them into an area and he's like, Savannah's gonna keep coming after me. I can't run from this anymore. I gotta face him. So he's making the full hero turn. And he says like something, he's like, because that's what a hero would do. And he like goes off, and Freddy's like, oh wow, that's a pretty good catchphrase. And then later on in the fight, he says something really corny, and he looks at Freddy to see if it's a good catchphrase, and they're like, nah.
Yeah.
Not too much, which I think is pretty funny.
Again, all the self-aware superhero stuff. Excellent. Yeah. Very, very good.
I have a note here that I think is really funny. When Savannah flies over the winter carnival, he goes, champion! And like he's like calling for him.
Yeah.
And when I saw that, I immediately thought of, champion, you're a dog, and you're lost, and soon you will be found. From Parks and Rec.
Yeah.
Hilarious. Anyway, so this fight ensues, and Savannah had talked to them a little bit about how he becomes a little more susceptible to pain if the monsters are out.
Right.
So Mary and some of the others are kind of like drawing them out, and they're splitting up to run around the carnival. So the monsters are fighting them there, and there's a really cool moment where Mary takes a rifle and tries to like shoot his eye, and it's like going right for his eye, and at the last second he like tink, like, catches it and stuff like that. Is there any like big thing you want to talk about before we get to the the next big sequence? Besides the fact that it's just like monster mayhem, Stranger Things kind of stuff.
I dig it. Again, I like the set design. I like the carnival, the winter. It's snowy. It's like, it just feels very, comforty.
Yeah.
Which is weird to say because it's
right. It's at nighttime, like a lot of DC fights, but there's like Christmas lights and toys and people and like, it's cool. And it just really makes me wish that they do a Batman thing at a carnival at some point, like cool. With the
Joker's Carnival.
Joker's Carnival would be sweet. But eventually the fight leads to all of the kids getting held hostage by all of the 7 sins. Right. And Freddy's like, Billy, there's still one in his head. You got to get it out. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to take him down. And the guy's like, Dr. Savannah's like, if you don't surrender your power to me now, he's like, then, I'm going to kill all of these kids. Yep. So what happens instead is he's able to knock Savannah over and grab the staff. And he remembers what the wizard said, which is, say my name and my power will flow through you. And so he grabs the staff, and he has all the kids put their hand on the staff. And he's like, you gotta say my name really quickly, and you'll get my powers. And they all say Billy, which I think is really funny. And he's like, no, whatever, what I normally say.
Say the thing that I say.
Yeah, and then they all say Shazam. And we get this really cool scene that's just straight out of the comic book panel, where like the smoke clears a little bit, and you see lightning bolts kind of off, like glowing. And Savannah looks up, and all of the kids have now transformed into older Shazam champion style.
Fucking awesome. Yeah. It's all great. This is all super awesome. This is so cool. Didn't know any of this shit. As a person that didn't know anything about Shazam, I saw that. I was like, this is great. Like, I had no idea that the kids were going to become Shazams. Yeah. It's super
great.
Cool.
But they all still have, their normal personalities. Like, Darla still talks like a kid. Yeah. At some point, she saves Santa, like the mall Santa from earlier. And she's like, my name's Darla, and I've been really good this week. And
so
he's like,
cute.
what the fuck? So they're really excited, and like Pedro's like checking out his muscles that he's trying to get. He's very fit, and Eugene is like happy about his deep voice. Freddy's obviously very happy that he can fly and he doesn't have his disability and stuff like that. Mary doesn't change too much.
That's the one. That's the one
more muscular.
Yeah, that's the one funny one where it's like you probably didn't even need to like age her up. You probably could have just given her the muscle suit.
Yeah, probably. But they did anyway. And so they start to fight all the sins, and they're like, Billy's got to get this last one out. So then we get another great funny moment that I absolutely love and didn't see coming, which was Billy and Savannah are flying through downtown Philly, and they're really a couple blocks away from each other in the air. And in typical superhero movies, they're able to talk to each other from long distances. But it makes total sense, and I don't know why no one ever thought of this before. But he's giving this villain monologue, and Billy's like, "Wait, are you talking?"
Well, it's funny because it cuts over to Billy's perspective, and it's just silence and road noise and everything, and it's like, oh my god,
it is so funny. And he's like, "I don't."
Genius.
He's like, "There's cars and like the wind, like I can't even understand you." And like it keeps going back, and Savannah's like, "I really want to hear what his full monologue is because it's very dark." And
it's dark.
He's like, "You're gonna be begging for death before the stuff like that." It's just really, really well thought of, and I like that a lot. And so they have their fight, and Billy starts doing the math, and they're on the roof, and he's like, there's all these sins out there, and he lists them all off, like greed and gluttony. He's like, the one that isn't out there is little envy. And he's able to, not necessarily Savannah, but he's able to draw envy out by making fun of that actual deadly sin. Envy comes out and tackles him, and he blasts him with the Shazam lightning bolt blast, which I think is really cool.
Yep.
He does that in the comics all the time, which is like, I don't know, it's just really OP that you can just, it's like Pikachu in Super Smash.
It's just down B.
Down Bs. Yeah, Pikachu! Oh man, but yeah, so he's able to get that out of there, and he's able to pull the eye out of Savannah, right? He takes it back to the carnival, and he pulls the eye out, and that's able to subdue all the monsters back into the eye. And there's this great part where he's holding it, and everyone's looking at him, and he's like, "What? You can give me everything that I want?" And he like pretends to put it back into his face, and they're like, "Billy, don't." He's like, "Nah, dude, I was just kidding. You think I was gonna stick this in my actual eye? That's gross." And then, we get a really cool moment where everybody at the carnival is like clapping for them for getting superpowers. And I think Eugene's Mortal Kombat throw in where he's like, fatality. I think that's really
They're all really good at playing older That's something we should, talk about with Zachary Levi, is that he's just very good at playing a kid inside of a grown man's body. Like, he's just got the right voice for it and the mannerisms. It's all great.
He's like, "You think I'm going to put a demon ball in my head?"
Yeah, right.
It's disgusting. So they take the ball back to the Rock of Eternity, and they're all looking around, and they're enjoying their area. And Freddie and Billy had been talking about buying a lair from like a realtor earlier in the movie, which is a pretty funny scene. And they're like, "You know what this is? This is our lair." And they're like super excited about that. So after they've returned to the Rock of Eternity, the next scene is them back at the house. And one of the things that have been happening throughout the movie is when they have family dinner, they do like hands in the middle, like a huddle. And Victor says all hands on deck, and they do like a quick family prayer and stuff like that. And Billy usually hasn't been partaking, but Billy initiates this one, which I think is cool. And he's talking about like, thank you for the food and the family and the home and stuff like that. It's a very touching scene.
Real road.
Yes, it's
Christ
just cool.
Almighty.
It's just cool to see him, together.
It's great. Yeah. It's wholesome. It's heartwarming. It's great.
Yeah. And so earlier, we had talked about how Shazam was supposed to go to lunch for Freddy so that he didn't get beat up by a bully. He had been like, "I know him. He'll come to lunch tomorrow," and then he actually didn't, and he got like, I think they call it a suitcase wedgie, which is where you get picked up by your underwear, as described in that. And so this little tag is, Freddy's trying to find a place to sit, and everyone kind of clears out from the table that he sits at. And then the Shazam family, minus Billy, sits down with them, and he's like, "I thought you guys had different lunches." And they're like, "We made special arrangements." And there's this great part where Shazam comes in and he's got the school lunch. I want to see the scene of him being like, "Yeah, can I get the cheeseburger and the chocolate milk and an applesauce packet?" But yeah, he's like, "Freddie Freeman, this guy taught me everything I need to know about superhero stuff." And he's like, "What's up, dude?" He's like, "I can't believe you actually did it." He's like, "I brought a friend. I hope it's okay." And then we get the as Superman walks in, and
it's just his lower half.
Yeah, it's just everything chin down. But I love the shot of him standing to Freddy's right, and Shazam is like sitting next to him, and then that's where the credits roll. Right, which is just freaking awesome.
Fucking great.
And
Love
we get two mid and post-credit scenes we can go through real quick. The mid one is Dr. Savannah writing crazy things on the walls of his prison cell. And we get our introduction to Mr. Mind, he's a mind-controlling caterpillar from the early days of Shazam. And he's talking about how him and Savannah are going to rule the magic lands together.
Ooh. Our microphone almost just went straight through the window.
We're just going to blow through it.
That's fine.
So, yeah, they're going to rule the Magic Lands together, and that's a really cool tease to set up the fact that they're going to explore some of the other magical realms that we've been talking about earlier, some of the other 6. And then the very end credit scene is another superhero test, which is pretty great. Which is he's holding up a goldfish and he's doing the Aquaman fish test to see if we can talk to it. And he's like, "Oh, you're sad? Don't worry. There's always another fish in the sea." Nah, dude, I can't talk to fish. He's like, "Why would we even want that?" He's like, "There's not even cool." He's like, "How about commanding entire legions of ocean creatures?"
Yeah.
And he's like, "All right, that's pretty cool."
Going through some last-minute trivia we got here. Michelle Borth, who plays the superpowered form of Mary Bromfield, says that a lot of her scenes were removed from the final film. They would have seen superhero Mary as laughing, dancing around the sins as she's fighting and taunting them. Borth says that when she auditioned for a role in the film, she was cast based on how well she danced.
Interesting.
The 8th Heavenly... wait, we already read that one. In an alternate opening of the film had Thad being bullied at his family home in plain sight. He would later bring the sins home years later to kill everyone there.
Yikes.
And Seth Green paid a visit on set. He can be briefly seen as one of the customers at the strip club.
Of course he is.
All right. 3 questions, John.
3 questions.
I know what you got.
All
I
right.
want to hear them.
Who won the movie for you?
Who won the movie? This is an interesting one. I think, personally, the standout performance in this is Freddy.
Okay.
I think he's...
Jack Dylan Glazer. I think that he's incredibly lovable, likable, portrays a very interesting archetype in a character that we don't see commonly in movies like this. Sure.
But I also think that, something could be said for David F. Sandberg being the winner, because did they say he's going to direct the sequel?
I think so.
Gods and Monsters or whatever it's called?
Fury of the Gods.
So it's like, yeah, small budget horror movie indie director goes on to make a big budget superhero movie in the DC cinematic universe, which is a risky gamble, and it's actually might be one of the best ones. And so I think that there's a case for both those guys. What do you think?
I'm torn, because I think a case could be made for Zach Levi, because I think no one's going to be able to embody this character ever again. I also think you can make a case for the character of Shazam, because I think he won the movie by bringing that character into the public eye. But I really like your Jack Dylan Glazer pick a lot, because I think his performance is really great, and it's very much like he's kind of the heart. He's the one that kind of wrangles Billy into understanding some things. But yeah, I just really like Zach Levi in this scene. In this movie, he makes me laugh so much.
Yeah, I mean,
Mark Strong's a contender too.
Sure, there's so many great performances. Even Darla slaps.
Yeah,
there's so many great little performances that nuances the characters. I think that I do think that your thing about a case for Shazam, the character, is very apt, because I had no idea who this was, what this was. I thought it was a cool idea and a cool premise, and leaving the movie, and especially after this rewatch, where I would say that I liked the movie more on my second time watching it.
Sure.
I think that I'm much more interested in this character, in this universe, and I'm interested to see where they go with it now. Yeah. So I think both of those are good picks. Or any of those, really. Yeah,
I'm gonna go with Shazam. The character of Shazam is what I'm gonna say.
And to add a second voice, then I'll go with Freddy.
Cool.
Because I like Freddy a lot. I think he's hilarious.
All right, what are your favorite scene?
Favorite scene?
Yeah.
This is tricky. I think
there's a lot of good stuff in this movie.
There's a lot of great stuff.
Do you go funny? Do you go hard?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I honestly think stem to stern, the best part of the movie is right when he gets the superpowers and he and Freddy are like hanging out. Like I don't know if you can call.
I think you can consider that your favorite scene. It's it's a big scene.
Yeah, it's the convenience store.
It's one plot point.
It's the convenience store, the alleyway, the woman getting mugged, all of that.
Yeah.
It's awesome. It's so
His
good.
name is Thundercrack.
It's funny. It's smart. It's wholesome and engaging, and it's all the above. It's easily my favorite part of the entire film.
I'm gonna agree with you. That's my favorite part too. I'll say, to pick a different one just for the sake of it,
Sure,
is him talking to his mom for sure.
Yeah,
but that is like
that's the emotional
not
high
nearly as
point.
funny as it's not funny at all. Actually,
No, it's really dark.
incredibly sad. All right, so ratings and rankings.
Okay, so let's go back, shall we, John?
Let's do it.
The Radiovania DCEU list, as it stands so far: number 1, Wonder Woman; number 2, Man of Steel; number 3, Aquaman; number 4, Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice; number 5, Justice League; and number 6, Suicide Squad.
Y'all jokers must be crazy.
So
I want to see Shazam fight Deadshot in the sequel.
Really?
At the beginning, just like a very quick throwaway thing. How funny would that be?
Here's the thing, man. This is the first, and it's so funny that it's happening with Shazam of all movies, but it's like, after watching Shazam, it's like, man, I want to see Zachary Levi's character interacting with like Henry Cavill and stuff, but now it's like it's all fucked.
Yeah.
So it's kind of sad, you know.
He will probably. This is a good, interesting question before we do ratings.
Yeah.
Which person in the current DCEU is he most likely to interact with in a movie going forward?
The current one?
The current one.
I would say probably Gal. Or maybe Jason Momoa.
I was gonna say I think they really want to do Aquaman and Shazam.
I'm here for it. Here's the thing: is that, remember we were talking about Justice League and the Snyder Cut and all that stuff, and they were talking about how Zack Snyder kept saying and insists, and even doubled down on it on the Fandom, talking about how Ray Fisher's was supposed to be like the heart of Justice League.
Yeah.
And there really is no heart to Justice League, at least the movie that we've seen so far.
Nope.
But it's like you add a character like Shazam who actually does have heart and a backstory and a wholesome quality to him. All of a sudden you have stakes. All of a sudden you have a lot of emotional weight because you're dealing with a young kid who has like a trauma, and that's brilliant. That's so brilliant, and it's so frustrating that we're dealing with this bullshit now.
Yeah.
I mean, what do you think the odds are of a Shazam cameo in '84? That's the next one. You don't think so?
I think it's all gonna be set in 1984, so he wouldn't even be born yet.
Well, they're going to do flash forwards and stuff, and, you know, there could be, I mean, even like a credit sequence, like a post-credit sequence.
Maybe.
Anything?
Maybe.
I don't know. I'm hopeful.
Diana's in Philly, she's getting a cheesesteak, and he, like, runs by.
I know you, you're great.
Yeah, or he's like, hey, I'm a superhero. We should go out sometime. I don't know.
She's like, me too.
Yeah.
And they get...
I would, if there is in a world where Shazam is in the Justice League, he is your Ant-Man or your Thor type figure for like the way those characters are to the Avengers is the way that Shazam.
I feel like he's your Spider-Man.
Sure, it's just one of those fun comic relief, but also like very powerful characters. Yeah,
because that's the cool thing about like in Spider-Man in Civil War, Tony has the conversation with him where he's like, you know, when you have these powers and you don't do things, it's like it's your fault or whatever. And he's talking about it. It's like when you have the ability to do something and you don't act.
It's great responsibility. I love how they skirted around saying that.
It's cool. It makes sense for the MCU.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. Shazam ratings. Are we doing this now?
Yeah.
So last week we talked about Aquaman, and do you remember what we gave it? Like, I don't know if I even rated it.
I think we settled. We didn't really care about the rating as much. We focused more on the rankings. We settled somewhere between a 5 and a 6.
Really, that's how low we were for Aquaman.
That's how we were pretty harsh for it. Maybe even a 6.5.
6 or 6.5 sounds about right for Aquaman. For Shazam, I'm going to say a solid 8, maybe even an 8.5.
I would give it an 8.5 for sure.
Yeah, I think that.
I think there are flaws to it, but they're not many because this movie is very much aware of what it is.
Yeah, and here's the other thing that I say this all the time on basically every show where we talk about not Supa. Sorry, I just saw a sign for something ridiculous. What is that?
I have no idea. We
Hot
are in
Springs,
the middle of nowhere.
RV park. Yeah, whatever.
We're on top of some more hot springs stuff.
Are we really?
Yeah.
Oh, cool. But the thing I say a lot of the times with movies like Batman v Superman, it's like you can, or I don't know, a movie like Spider-Man 2. We'll use it as an example. Okay. Spider-Man coming up a lot here. Yeah, it's got flaws. It doesn't age super well. There's some weird editing decisions. Some of the acting is terrible.
Sure.
Some of the writing is terrible.
Sure.
But I'm able to look past a lot of those things and enjoy the film because of how strong some of its other elements are.
Yeah.
And for a movie like Shazam, the thing is that, like, yeah, it might have some cheesy stuff, some corny stuff. Maybe not the best, like, some character development I wish there was a little bit more of. Maybe, I don't know, little itty-bitty things.
Sure.
But I'm able to look past it because I'm having so much fun.
Yeah, that's the thing, is, like, it's an utterly fun and rewatchable experience. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And it's so funny that within the span of a year, right? Shazam came out in 2018?
Yeah, 2019.
2019. So then within the span of a year, we got Shazam and Joker, which are like two movies on the complete opposite spectrum, but two movies that I would say are great.
Yeah.
For completely different reasons. And DC is making both of them. And I think that it's really interesting that they're able to kind of exist in that, like, that space.
Yes.
Because Marvel is all one thing. It's all... You got your emotional stuff, but it's mostly a fun comic book engaging action adventure film.
Yes.
But DC has been able to kind of do these other things, and we've talked about it in shows forever. Like, DC should focus on doing these one-off, interesting, weird stories. Don't try and be Marvel, because
I would be more than content if Shazam and any other sequels, if the only other movie that it's tied into is Black Adam, because I really am fine with it just existing in its own world.
Right.
Same with Aquaman. Like, if he's never in the Justice League again, that's fine. I'll just watch those movies. Same with Wonder Woman.
Yeah.
Like, don't focus so much on the team-ups right now. Make some good stuff with these characters, and then we'll see. And let's get hyped for the Batman. You know what I mean?
And I think the smart thing to do would be, like, focus on these characters, give us fun, engaging sequels. I hope Shazam 2 is great. I hope Aquaman 2 is great. I hope 84 is great.
Yeah, and the Suicide Squad.
Maybe focus on those franchises that you're doing something unique with, and then in maybe 3 or 4 years, then maybe do a team-up thing that you don't expect, and be like, oh, well, now I know these fucking characters.
Like you should have done at the beginning.
Exactly. Yes. And then I think Batman is its own unique thing. I agree with you. I think that Matt Reeves' Batman is going to completely stand on its own.
I would love a DC Justice League many years down the road that has Gal and Jason Momoa and Shazam, and maybe if they redeem Ezra Fisher or Ezra Miller to an extent.
But they're still doing Flashpoint. He's still in that movie.
I think it'd be very interesting if they have a Justice League team where Wonder Woman's the leader and there's no Batman or Superman in it.
Yeah.
That'd be kind of cool.
It'd be interesting. I'm sure that...
Get the Martian Manhunter in there. Let's get some obscure JLA in here, right? Get the Black Canary in there. Maybe even put Harley Quinn on the team. I don't know.
Yeah, who cares?
That would be interesting.
Do weird stuff. Don't rely on... They've shown that they can...
Polka Dot Man in there.
Polka Dot Man. Can't wait to see Polka Dot Man, baby. But, yeah, maybe bring back, in 5 or 6 years, once you've had some time to grow these individual characters, maybe bring back old, grizzled Ben Affleck Batman. Why not?
Batman Beyond.
Yeah, why not? Do it. Yeah. Fuck it. But, anyway, ranking... I think it's number one.
I think we can both agree it's the best.
I think that, the only argument would be, like, do you have any reservations about putting it below Wonder Woman?
I don't think Wonder Woman is as good as this movie.
Okay.
Because Wonder Woman has flaws that I despise a lot more than the minor flaws of this movie.
Yeah, the third act of Wonder Woman kind of falls apart for me.
The stuff with Ares at the end is not very strong as the rest of the movie, whereas this movie's villain is strong throughout.
Yes.
And the motivations are clear, and the plot is clear, and it's fun. So, like, they both have humor and heart to it, but I think Shazam sticks the landing a little bit better in terms of, like, a good through line. Yeah,
something that can't be overstated is how well Shazam handles the final battle. Because it's like a boss battle in a video game. It's like, we have to... This is our goal. This is what we have to accomplish to do X thing. We have to beat this guy by getting the deadly sins out of him. And then there's the whole thing with envy, which is really cool. It's not Batman v Superman where we just have to punch this giant thing as hard and fast as we can until it dies.
Yeah.
And it's so clever. And I remember walking out of Shazam the first time being like, that was cool. It was fun. I enjoyed it. Superhero movie. After the second time, after like thinking about it for a while, I really do think that this is my favorite of the DCEU movies.
Definitely.
Like, it's just...
I'll be curious to see where Birds of Prey falls.
Yeah, me too. I keep saying I don't want to reveal too much about my thoughts on Birds of Prey because I really want to I'm excited to see what you think of it because, it's got your boy, it's got Ewan.
I was going to say, I think the thing that I'm going to like most about it is Ewan.
He gives a great performance.
I'm curious to see how he stacks up against some of the other DCEU villains, but yeah, I think we can clearly settle on Shazam being number one.
Yeah, I have no disagreements. I think it's a clear number one contender. It's just interesting how, the polar opposites there. Our number one, Shazam. Our number 6. Or now number 7, right?
7.
This is number 7.
Yeah.
So yeah, now...
Suicide Squad. And those movies came out with a span of 3 years. Same universe. It's crazy.
Bonkers.
It's like you said, like if you got to see some of these clips from Shazam right after like BVS, you would have been like, or even Suicide Squad, you'd have been like, there's no way the DC universe can rebound. And they've done a pretty good job of playing catch up. However, it can't be understated that the whole reason we're doing this series of podcasts is because their cinematic universe was a failed experiment.
Really? Yeah.
They dropped the ball on creating a cohesive story, unlike the way that Marvel did it, or even Kevin Smith's cinematic universe, if you will.
Yeah, the View universe is more connected than this shit.
Yes. The DCEU is completely unconnected. However, there are movies in it that are good, which is nice to talk about those.
Yeah, and I want to see more like this too. Like, so one of my last questions for you before we start to wrap up, like, given your knowledge about Shazam, like with this god, what is it again? Fury of the Gods. I don't like that title. Firstly, I think it's
not great.
It's not really catchy at all.
Just call it Shazam 2.
Yeah, I wish we would just call it Shazam 2 or Shazam Part 2, like The Godfather. Yeah, or The Last of Us. But my question to you is, where do they go from here? Like, what would you do if you were the director, if you were making this movie?
I think, because they have to do the Black Adam movie first, right?
Really, Black Adam's first?
I think it's coming out.
I'll look it up real quick.
It depends on when Black Adam comes out, because the title Fury of the Gods makes me think Black Adam, because him and Shazam have the same power from the wizards and stuff like that, which is bestowed upon them from the gods. However, if Black Adam doesn't come out before this, I can very well see the sequel being Mr. Mind and Savannah, and they just explore the magical realms and they just get weird with it.
Okay,
that's what I'm thinking could be possible.
So here's our release slots. Next up is Wonder Woman 1984. Then it's the Snyder Cut.
Okay.
Which we're gonna have to run it back.
Run it back, baby.
Then it's the Suicide Squad, August 6th of next year. Then after that is the Batman, October 1st, 2021. Then after that is Untitled Black Adam movie, December 22nd, 2021. Yep. In development currently. And then after that...
Yeah, that's not coming out next Christmas. There's no way.
No way, yeah. All this stuff's getting pushed. But, I mean, they're developing it. They're in pre-production. They're writing. They're doing all that shit. Shazam, Fury of the Gods is after that in 2022. Then the Flashpoint movie is slated for 2022. And then Aquaman 2 is slated for 2022 as well.
Damn.
Then The Trench is TBD.
I forgot they're doing The Trench. Is that a TV show? Or a movie?
No, I think it's a movie.
Horror movie?
That's
kind of cool.
What we know so far, based on the immense success of Aquaman, and given director James Wan's horror, whatever this word is, Warner Brothers has put into development a spin-off called The Trench. The idea is to further explore the Trench location from the hit DC movie and create a film with a lower budget than Aquaman, but more of a horror tone. Up-and-coming screenwriters Noah Gardner and Aidan Fitzgerald have been tasked with penning the script, and Wan is on board as a producer alongside Peter Safran. So yeah, that's what's coming up here. So Black Adam first, then Shazam 2. So you think Black Adam sets up Black Adam in the history, and then Shazam 2 is both of them.
Then
Fight.
Yeah.
And then they team up, right?
And then they team up at some point.
Cool.
Yeah. They're kind of frenemies a little bit. I mean, I'll be curious. I kind of want to tell you nothing about Black Adam.
I know. I don't want to.
Because I kind of want you to just get like, because of how much you enjoyed Shazam. I don't want to spoil it for you, So maybe don't read the Jeff Johns Shazam book until after the Black Adam movie comes out. Because there's a really cool twist in that I don't want. If they're copying the Black Adam origin from Jeff Johns' run too, which it looks like they might be, there's some cool shit that I think you'll really enjoy.
Damn. Yeah. Well, it makes me really excited.
Yeah.
I mean,
The Rock and Zach Levi in the same movie.
I love The Rock. I love Zach Levi. I want to see them hang out. Shit would be slapping.
I hope Shazam, Fury of the Gods, if The Rock is quote unquote the villain, I still hope they let The Rock be charismatic like in the Fast movies. And it's just
Daddy's got to go to work.
Yeah, it's just two charismatic, powerful beings just duking it out somewhere. Or maybe they're teaming up to fight Mr. Mind at some point too.
Cool.
So that'd be pretty sweet.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think we've reached the end of the road.
I think so.
Not on our road trip, but the end of this road.
Unfortunately, not on our road trip. We still got a ways to go.
Yeah, Shazam. That's our new number one. Thank you guys for listening to this episode. It's been a good one. We had some good laughs. It's fun when we can laugh with the movie, not at it, for a change of pace.
Yes.
I harken back to our Suicide Squad review where we basically just shook our heads at every line. That's some rough stuff there.
We had a hard time picking a favorite scene.
Yeah. Yeah, I did have a hard time picking a favorite scene.
Same with Justice League.
But I think we're entering a new era. Doesn't it feel like that, kind of? Like with Joker and Shazam and now Wonder Woman, it's like the Batman's coming up too. It's like it's a little bit. The future seems a little brighter.
Yeah.
And it's so funny because the whole reason we're doing this is because, like you said, the universe is flawed. But it started out because we lived through it.
Yes. We're still living in it, and we'll see how long they actually keep it pumping. But
it's just so fascinating.
Whoever is the story head right now, I can't imagine the puzzle box that they're trying to solve, where it's like, well, we don't want to hit the full reboot button because people love Gal Gadot, and they love Jason Momoa, and they love Shazam, and Henry Cavill is a cool dude. He would make a good Superman. We need to give him another chance. If we hit the cancel button, then we also lose Margot Robbie and all this. And they're like, we have some good pieces here. We just failed starting out some of them. How do we fix this so that we can keep it going? Because these do make us money, and they are good films that fans enjoy. But do they expect us to just try to ignore the fact of how it started? Or do you think they're going to find a way, like Endgame made me like Dark World more, to make me care about Suicide Squad or BVS?
Here's the thing. I think you need to look no further than the fact that they're calling the Suicide Squad sequel The Suicide Squad.
Okay.
Otherwise, they would call it 2 if they wanted to remind you that there was a first one. Like, I think what they're going to do is, for the people like us that have been there from the beginning, that have lived through the shit. And these movies made money, too. We can't forget that these movies made money. They're just like, people saw them and they left and they went, wow, what the fuck did I just see?
Yeah.
So it's like, there's no return. People aren't going back to see these movies. They want people to, like, engage with them, buy them on Blu-ray, talk about them, and create a community, be excited for sequels. And so what I think that they're going to do is they're hitting the soft reboot button. They're saying, okay, we will make Wonder Woman. It's not called Wonder Woman 2, it's Wonder Woman 84.
Yeah.
Like, they're just making these things to kind of stand.
Shazam, Fury of the Gods.
Yeah.
They're just doing stuff.
Stuff to stand on its own. And then, like we said, like, I think if they're smart, they're realizing right now that the MCU, Avengers was as big as it was because you had Thor, Captain America, Iron Man, Hulk. You set these things up over a course of a few years. People built up the excitement, and then boom, you have this pop. Justice League, a movie about Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, The Flash, all in the same movie, like, lost them money basically.
Yeah.
Like it was, and it's so they have to understand that the right move is to slowly build things, not do a Superman movie and then basically do a Justice League movie.
Okay, I have an interesting question for you, but if we're running out of battery, I can save it for a future pod.
Ask it now. We have 5% left. I'll pause it and save it before this thing dies.
All right. Here's the question.
Yeah.
How do you, if you need to reset it a little bit, how do you justify what gets to stay in a post-Flashpoint? Because clearly that movie, they're going to have the opportunity to bring in the multiverse and maybe try and fix things and set things up. What do you save? And do you make anything that's already come out exist in another multiverse so that it can be redeemed? Like a Man of Steel. For example, let's say they somehow set it up so that Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice actually existed on Earth 2 instead of on our Earth.
This is an interesting concept.
And that Henry Cavill's Superman from the end of Man of Steel has not had a true direct sequel and never actually died.
I like this concept a lot.
I think it's possible that they can do it and save it. And also that could be how you rope in a different Batman actor, or you can redeem Affleck by being like, the Batman from Batman v Superman that helped lead to Superman's death and was very moody was from Earth 2. And this Ben Affleck Bruce Wayne never killed people. His Robin didn't die. All this kind of stuff. Like, there's a way they could hit the reset button with it, but that would be the biggest reveal of all reveals. And it'd be very muddled if it's done poorly.
Yeah, right. I think that, here's what I think is going to happen. Gossip around movies usually happens because, like, it's usually something is focused on something. Where, like, for example, this Flashpoint movie, we've been hearing about Michael Keaton Batman coming back and Ben Affleck coming back as Batman in this Flashpoint movie.
Confirmed, right?
Confirmed.
Yeah.
That to me says that the studio is focusing on Batman, it being a key component in this film.
I think they know they fucked up and they're trying to fix it.
Exactly. So what I think they're going to do is, if they do this Flashpoint thing and they reset and they somehow create Earth 2 and make it so that things didn't happen, I think it's just probable that Affleck's Batman is reset and everything else stays. Because here's the other thing. The wild card is...
Which would mean, I mean, that could be the fixing problem, right?
Right, because then you wouldn't go back to Man of Steel. You'd go back to Batman v Superman. You'd go back to Bruce Wayne not
wanting to kill him.
Exactly, not wanting to kill him.
Yeah.
And
you can keep the Zod death and everything that happens in Man of Steel.
I think you tie it into Lois as the key, and I'm not fucking with you.
No, I think you're right.
You Flashpoint, he travels back. Lois is the key. That doesn't make sense. Maybe Lois is the one that's able to talk some sense into Bruce, and then they become friends immediately.
Or explain what Superman means to him somehow. I don't know how.
Sure.
That would be very interesting to see that happen. But here's what I want to know is, like, I like the idea of it being like a road trip movie through time and space with Ezra Miller, Ben Affleck, and Michael Keaton in like a space Batmobile.
Oh my
How
God.
fucking crazy
Like
does that
Bill
sound?
and Ted's Excellent Adventure.
Exactly. But it's two Batmans and a Flash.
Yeah.
I think it's cool. It could be cool too if it's Flashpoint or Crisis on Infinite Earths.
Yeah.
And if Ezra Miller's Barry Allen sacrifices himself to reset the multiverse, because then we can get rid of that guy because he's canceled technically. And then you can do the Wally West Flash if you ever want to do the Justice League again.
Yeah.
I also think that the Flashpoint movie should reset Green Lantern because they have that opportunity.
That'd be cool. Can
do
you
that.
imagine seeing Ryan Reynolds Green Lantern in that movie?
I think you could do it.
You could probably do
If
it.
you make
They're
this
crazy
movie-
enough to do it.
if
Who's
you make
directing
this-
Flashpoint? Do we know?
We just talked about it pretty recently, I thought. I
Really?
don't remember. Yeah.
I'll look that up real quick.
But
Here's my thing.
That could be the movie to change everything. Because, like, if that works, then there's going to be a petition of people being like, do that for Star Wars. Do that for... And it's just like, you can delete things if you can rewrite it properly.
The director is Andy Muschietti. I've never heard of this man.
What has he worked on?
I don't know. I'll look at this up. But,
Andy, you're our guy. Fix it.
you're our only hope. Here's my last thing about, like, the entire... Oh, my God. Wow. So on IMDb, Michael Keaton is listed on the cast list.
Yeah.
That's crazy. The director of this directed a horror film called Mama. Oh, he directed It and It Chapter 2.
That's
So this guy's totally capable.
Yeah.
Here's my last wild card before we close this theory speculate, because I like this a lot. I like this idea of the multiverse.
I like this too.
Resetting it. Why I think they're only going to do Batman is because Ben Affleck is clearly like, he's like, I had the experience, I'm out. We're also going to focus on Robert Pattinson's Batman. That's going to be a trilogy. That's hopefully going to be successful. I think it's got to be the most well-kept secret in Warner Brothers right now. I think that there have been discussions with Henry Cavill to have him return.
Yeah.
And I don't think they're going to tell anybody.
No, and I think you have to have Batman fixed in order to do a Man of Steel 2.
I don't even know if it's going to be a Man of Steel 2, but like in one of these movies, maybe it is Flashpoint. I think you don't announce it, you don't say anything, it's just a twist. Superman shows up and it's Henry Cavill, and it's like, okay, he's in the... Because people like him.
Yeah, they do.
People like Henry Cavill. He's incredibly likable. He's like a good personality.
He's never gotten the chance to play Superman the way it should be played as well.
Exactly. And so I think that they're going to give him another chance. I think people know that Henry Cavill is viable as Superman. I just think that they need the right director, and they need to like wow the audience with it. And so I think that he's definitely in negotiations, if not already signed.
And if you do this right, this could be Affleck's actual farewell as Batman, and then he doesn't have to come back. If they're able to reset his character's motivations before BVS, and then you can see him, maybe it's like a scene of him like looking at a newspaper, and it's like takes place after, and it's like Superman stops Lex Luthor from unleashing demon upon the city, and he looks at it, and maybe like the tag of that movie is him being like, "Way to go, Clark," and then you never see him again as Bruce Wayne.
It's cool.
That would be really fucking rad.
I could dig it. Like it's just him retiring.
And then the best part about that is then the Justice League never happens. So then we don't have to worry about either the Snyder Cut or the other cut.
I love this theory. I love it.
This could be awesome.
Hire us.
Honestly, dude.
The fuck are you guys doing over there? Hire us.
Dude, I want this to happen because then that Flashpoint movie is like nominated for 2 supporting Oscars, and both of them are for somebody playing Batman.
Can you imagine?
And Affleck.
Can you imagine Michael Keaton winning an Oscar for Flash?
That'd be great.
Oh my god.
This year's supporting actor award goes to Michael Keaton for old Batman in Flashpoint.
He's in the audience. He's like, "Are you fucking serious?" All right, well, we're running out of battery, and I think our speculation has reached its end.
Yeah.
Thank you all for listening. RadiovaniaShow@gmail.com. Send us your theories, your questions, and also, something we need to think about, send us requests for any other shows you want us to do like this one, since we're getting close to the end of this DC thing.
Now that Wonder Woman's pushed back.
Yeah, now that Wonder Woman's pushed back, we need something to do. So, I'm at Zach Rottello. You can find John Parker out there in California, roaming the countryside like old man Logan.
Come get him.
Thank you all for listening. Do you have a Shazam quote you want to end us out on?
Do you think I was going to stick a demon ball in my eye? Welcome to Nevada.
Oh, shit. We're in Nevada. I shot a man in Reno.